Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. I saw Dunkirk in IMAX in actual 70mm film, not digital, actual film.
I'm losing
70mm
one in every 8 syllables.
Portions sort of looked not that great. I mean, they looked good. This was opening night. This was like the first screening, but there were the little film artifact things in there, the little bits of grain and little errors in the film already on the very first screening. But the IMAX portions, which was the vast majority of the movie, looked pristine, really, really excellent. And I can say I haven't seen it in any other format, but I can pretty confidently say seeing it in the full gigantic frame, especially for the aerial scenes. Yeah. That's the way to see it. I mean, it's obvious.
Back it up. So, is this thing digital or not?
No, it was shot on film.
I got that.
And it was, in my case, displayed using film.
Ah.
Yeah. That's film and film.
How's that nostalgia working out for you? Pretty good? Good nostalgia? You liked it?
Nostalgia?
Nice. Well, I mean, why else would we be doing it on film? Nostalgia.
Oh. Well, I mean, to do it in the full frame IMAX, I suppose. That would be, I don't know. It's Chris Nolan.
It's clearly impossible to do that with digitally. Clearly, it is a task of Herculean effort to try to recreate 70mm, whatever the heck it is, IMAX digitally. I mean, it would take a team of people, probably.
They do say the actual
hours.
IMAX film is like 18K resolution.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we have digital cameras that do that. So that could be a reason.
Yeah, but then you said that there's like artifacts and stuff.
Well, not in the IMAX stuff.
I know.
There was the other part that was 70mm 2.20 to 1 aspect ratio large format film. So that's the part. And the color was a little bit different in that too. So the color grading wasn't
I'm sure that's not
a perfect match.
Annoying at all. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
Great.
My take on the movie is that I think the best way I can describe it is, you know how you can look at paintings or photographs of World War II?
Yeah.
And in your own mind, you can sort of create your own story just from a strong image like that?
Yeah.
Well, this is like almost 2 hours of moving photographs like that. Like, there really isn't much in the way of character development. We know the outcome of this story. It's a historical event.
Right. Sure.
So this is like, it's a piece of artwork more than it is a narrative movie, I would say. That was my take on it.
I'm still not interested in seeing it. I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm sorry. I know people.
I know I will be in the minority in this, but I did not care for the Hans Zimmer score. I found it annoying and distracting as opposed to ratcheting up the tension, because it was relentless and it was just constant, and it was just that thing that Hans Zimmer does of sounding like a string just being tightened.
What movies will I know his music from?
The Dark Knight.
Oh, you mean all the Christopher Nolan stuff? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Inception. That's Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, but he had the big bong.
That's right.
Thing. I gotta appreciate the bong. The bong is nice. All right, that's great. That's fantastic. Comic-Con happened, I guess, or is happening, and the floodgates of trailers are upon us. So I've been watching a lot of trailers lately. So the Justice League trailer. How is that movie not going to be a train wreck? Can anybody explain to me how it's like? I was trying to explain to my 14-year-old son. I was like, "Oh, this movie's going to be a train wreck." He's like, "Why, Daddy?" I'm like, "Listen, Zack Snyder's I'm sure a wonderful human being, and he's going through a lot of personal tragedy right now. So I'm not bagging on the guy, but descriptively, objectively, his movies have not been well received since 300? Maybe Watchmen. Well, I'm going to be generous and say Watchmen.
Okay.
But 300 was... I love 300. I love 300. Saw it in IMAX. Loved 300. Okay. I was sort of okay with Watchmen. I was like, okay, you took a not particularly fast-moving set of comic books and made it into a not particularly fast-moving movie with a lot of blue dong. But great, fine. We'll give him that one. But since then, not been great. And then they bring in Joss Whedon at the very, very end here to fill in, which I think is a fantastic idea. It's way too late for him to fix whatever all the things that are surely wrong with this movie. But it just sounds like it's not. It's like DC or Warner or whoever this got way ahead of themselves. So like, Batman v Superman is going to be a huge blockbuster. We should start filming the Justice League now. We'll start pumping these things out. It's going to be amazing. And then BVS came out, and everybody's like, "This is hot garbage." And they're like, "Oh, we already started." And now
all I know is I was watching the trailer and I'm like, "Oh, yay, Wonder Woman!" Oh, not Wonder Woman.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have said that. You know what? And I think a lot of people have got some problems with that. I really like the fact that even though they have done something with Aquaman that's just like, remember how much everybody liked Khal Drogo? Remember how many people liked him when he wasn't wearing his shirt? He's never going to wear a shirt in this movie. And honestly, I think Aquaman was a really hard sell anyways. Yeah. So I'm glad they're doing something with him that makes him look kind of badass. I'm okay with that. I don't hate the new Flash guy. I really like the guy who does the TV show.
Yeah.
I think they could have totally brought him in. I don't hate the new Flash
like
costume that much.
Take. Yeah.
I don't hate the new Flash costume that much. I think it's fine. I don't like it. Looks like another gritty reboot of everything. I think Cyborg looks okay too. I'm okay with the way Cyborg looks. So I'm actually I like the trailer. I really like the trailer. I didn't think it showed us anything all that new, but I do like the trailer. I just can't imagine, like, I can't reconcile in my head how I can look at this trailer, which I kind of like, and think about all the stuff that's certainly going to be wrong with this movie and just be like, I can't reconcile this.
Well, I'll give it a chance.
I know you will. I will not go to the movies to see that unless it comes out to like stunning, like people going, I cannot believe, not Wonder Woman, like everything else they've ever put out is garbage, but this one's pretty good. They're gonna have to do better than pretty good. Like I thought Wonder Woman was okay, and it was fun, and I don't think I wasted my money. And I especially wanted to go to the theaters to see it because even if it was kind of good, I'm like, somebody has to tell all the fuddy-duddy, old dudes, probably white dudes in Hollywood that it's okay to make a movie about a woman. Okay, it is okay to make a movie about the woman, that the only person that gets naked in it is a dude. All right? That we have to send that message to Hollywood. So I was okay spending my money on it. But they're going to have to do better than that. Thor Ragnarok, that looks awesome. I am very happy with that. I hated the Dark World, whatever that one was called.
Yeah, Dark World.
That was hot. They could just take that movie and forget it. I didn't like Iron Man 3 either. I know a lot of people like that movie. I didn't like Iron Man 3. I hated Iron Man 2. Everybody hates Iron Man 2. That's not controversial. But I'm thinking this new 80s themed Thor, I'm kind of liking it. So we'll see. And Hulk is talking.
Yep.
What's up with that? And happy about that.
Carol Danvers is going to be set in the 90s. So
this is
retroactively bringing the Skrulls into the Marvel universe. That's going to be interesting.
That's nice.
Yep.
It's going to be interesting. I thought there's a lot of stuff out there that's really cool. So this is one of my favorite times of year. I wish I could go to Comic-Con. I really do. Someday we'll have to save up like 50 years of donations in order to get me there, but we'll get there. Oh, somebody asked not too long ago on this podcast, like YouTube, like how much money we get from YouTube.
Right.
I actually looked it up this week on accident. I didn't know that I could do it, but I did look it up. We are getting around the last couple of months somewhere between $15 and $20 a month.
Are you actually getting that money, or?
Oh, they won't send it to you until you've got $100.
Okay.
So once you pass $100, they will send you a check, or it goes to PayPal or whatever. I don't know where it goes. I literally do not know where it goes.
Might want to look into that. It's been up there for a few months. So
I just looked at PayPal. I didn't see anything from them, so I should probably figure that out. Yeah. But it does go someplace.
Okay.
It does go someplace. So yes. So $20 every 5 to 6 months. We should get so $200 a year is about what we're getting right now from ad revenue. So if you want to watch the whole video, the whole commercial,
ad,
I think we get more. So thank you for whoever does that. All right, let's get into this podcast. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. That is question@avrant.com. You go to www.avrant.com and leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast, YouTube.com/C/AVRant. Contact us directly. Rob is at avrant.com. His Twitter is @FirstReflect. Mine is Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter is @avrant_Tom. We have our producer, Austin. Austin Helps put together the question list. Usually, he also does our videos, and hopefully someday we'll be reviewing some stuff from SVS if I can ever email him back. I haven't.
You
had a chance
definitely
to do that yet.
should. That would be.
I'm
that would be
going
good.
to. I was going to do it today, and then instead I had children that suck up all my time. But I'm planning on doing it tomorrow. Austin also has his own podcast, the We Watch Movies podcast. We Watch Movie podcast is clearly a podcast about those little figurines that people stick in the ground in front that look like people bent over doing the lawn, the gardening. Have you ever seen those?
Not gnomes, but
Not gnomes. No, they're wood or cardboard cutouts that they stick in the ground. It looks like somebody bending over. They take pictures of those and critique them.
okay.
We Watch Movies podcast.
We Watch Movies. I think you have something on your cheek, but it might just be on my screen. I
Hold on
can't
a
tell.
second here. Let me see. Which cheek? This one?
Your left cheek.
This one?
Yeah.
Is it still there?
I don't think so.
Whatever.
Yeah.
This is some
Awesome
quality production value going on
That's
right
why
here.
you would come to YouTube.
We are not
it is the
CGing
main
out
reason.
nothing. I was listening to somebody talk about their podcast or YouTube or whatever it was, and they were saying that people were giving them a hard time because they were editing things. Now, first of all, we should totally edit things. Like, we should edit this
Not going
podcast.
to way too much time.
No, we're not going to do it. It's not like integrity that makes us not edit. It is pure, I am not doing it that anymore. I did it the first couple of episodes and went,
Yep.
it's way too much work. So, but let's go with integrity. I think integrity.
You want to give us
is
credit
why-
for that? Yay.
I'll take it. In the news, Paramount has announced that they'll start supporting Dolby
Okay.
Vision.
Listeners
What?
of the week.
Oh,
Forgot
listeners of the week. I totally scrolled by them. We want to thank our two listeners of the week, Mark and
It's coming up later. You said you
I
read
know.
it.
I'm trying to remember. I read it and it's Anand.
I believe it's Anand. Yeah, I believe
Anand.
Yeah,
Anand.
I might still have it right, even though he phonetically spelled it for us.
He phonetically spelled it for us, and we are idiots.
He said to just call him. He said to just call him Andy because we never get it right. So
I am so sorry,
also
dude.
be
Seriously, I'm glad to answer your questions. I am sorry I butcher your name. I am sorry. It is a very hard name to say, and I'm sure I could get it right if we were like besties and hung out all the time. And if you bought me enough beer, I'd say it wrong too. But anyways, Mark and Anand, they gave us donations. They went to www.avrant.com and clicked on the buy us a cup of coffee link. There, they either transferred it from their PayPal account or put in their credit card information and left us a little money that goes to pay for all of our stuffs, including our hosting fees and maybe buying gear to help do this review for SVS, because we might have to upgrade his receiver, Austin's receiver.
Ooh.
It's like a bazillion years old. It is.
it must
so
have a
old.
subwoofer output
It does, but
or
come on,
front, left, right outputs.
come on.
Oh, maybe not pre-outs.
I think we can go through accessories for less and maybe get them something that we recommend all the time,
That'd be
like a 3300.
I will say, Mark, Andy, just to make it easy, thank you very much for the donations. We very
And
much
on.
appreciate it. And somebody did write in today to say they bought something, but that was today, so you will be thanked next week.
Next
not
week.
worry.
There we go. Let's go to the news here. Paramount has announced they'll start up supporting Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos across Ultra HD Blu-ray and streaming releases. This leaves Fox as the only major studio avoiding Dolby Vision for home releases.
Yep.
Okay. This announcement comes on the heels of the previous week's confusion over Disney's Dolby Vision support for the Ultra HD Blu-ray release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I don't remember there being any confusion, but apparently there was. The final word there is that the Ultra HD Blu-ray will have Atmos sound, but only HDR10 video. While, for reasons we don't quite understand, the downloadable version from Disney Movies Anywhere will have Dolby Vision.
Yeah.
That's
Which
whatever.
means they've clearly mastered the movie in Dolby Vision at some point. Well, they did for the cinema to begin with.
It's probably they already sent it to, or they already have. It's already pressed, or even the they don't want to have to redo the cover art,
Or maybe they
something.
have to pay a license on the disc release that they just don't want to pay. Could be that.
Who cares? Breaking news via Brandon on Twitter and Nathan and Vince. Scott Wilkinson posted a comprehensive list of Dolby Vision compatible hardware on AVS Forum. He says he's confirmed every model directly with the manufacturers, and according to Anyways, according to the list, there's good news for 2015 D&M receivers owners and their 2016 receivers from every other brand.
Yes,
so you're gonna fill me in on that.
Save for Pioneer. For some reason, Pioneer, they only have the current, the newest models that for sure do Dolby Vision pass through, like out of the box. Those are the only ones that Scott has on his list now. I'm taking all of it with somewhat of a grain of salt because Lord knows people have contacted manufacturers directly for information before and
been lied to.
Turned out not to have correct information once all this has gone to pass. However, other retailers say they have contacted their dealers, and the official line from Denon and Marantz right now is that 2015 models. So we're talking the X3200. And the X3300, of course, being from 2016, or like mine, Marantz, the 6010 or the 7010 from 2015, as well as the 6011 and 7011. They're saying that this is the official line from them now, is that they'll all be getting the Dolby Vision and HLG hybrid log gamma pass-through updates via firmware. So all the other AV receiver manufacturers, Sony, Yamaha, Onkyo, those ones were mentioned in this write-up by Scott Wilkinson. The 2016 models and the current 2017 models, those ones have been confirmed for getting an update to pass through Dolby Vision and HLG, but not 2015 models for those brands. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but so far this is the current information. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Got some comments here. Josh says we've saved him a lot of money over the years and given him advice that he's put to good use. So he wanted to share some photos. I guess you're seeing those now if you're watching us on YouTube. Photos of his theater and mentioned that the ways we've influenced his setup. Are you guys ready?
It's coming.
He had wanted more bass than his dual F15 HPs were giving him. Those are subwoofers, of course, and had thought of replacing them at some point. We said, why not 2 more of those and stack them? So he did, which is crazy, but I was probably a joke, but it does work. So he put those dual subwoofer stacks at the midpoints of his side walls and started using a mini DSP. Also thanks to us, my review of the Salk Veracity HT2TL speakers led to Josh's, quote, best purchase ever, end quote. So
there you go.
I want to tell you, Josh, I don't remember reviewing those speakers.
Oh, I remember you reviewing some Salk sound speakers. So
I did. I remember I do remember the song Towers. I do not remember. I think I did. I mean, I must have. Anyways, we turned him on to Seymour AV and the excellent 150-inch acoustically transparent screen with magnetic masking panels that he wound up purchasing. He also used our advice to build a false wall and a shadow box for the screen. And he learned about GIC, acoustics, outlaw audio, and accessories for less, all from us. So he's thrilled with the results and figured we'd enjoy seeing how his advice has been applied. So we got some pictures here. It looks like there's something. There's like the
it's
wall
really cool.
going
I mean,
up.
that's a big screen. I like that, especially with the magnetic masking that can go on it.
Yeah, you can.
That's the IMAX experience, and then you mask it down. That's really cool. Yeah. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah,
and those stacks of F15 HPs. That's
they're awfully close. They're awfully close to that couch.
It doesn't look like a gigantic room.
It doesn't. So, well, he's happy.
That's
so
some
that's
fun
good.
stuff. So from where he started to where he wound up. Pretty darn impressive.
That's nice. Well, and
Very
that
nice.
could be you. All you have to do is ask us a bunch of questions. All right, here we go. Into the questions. Speaking of a bunch of questions,
didn't we have one more comment there?
What?
No,
There's no comment underneath there.
Okay, I was wrong.
I am not. I do mess up sometimes, but I can usually scroll correctly. Getting into the questions, this is a lot of questions, and they're from Fred. So everybody buckle up.
Yep.
A while back, Fred asked for room layout advice. His room has a large fireplace that he was intending to be the focus of the room, with the seating area around it, forcing him to squish his own home theater setup over to one side. Turns out they don't use the fireplace.
Yeah,
dude, like for real.
Best laid plans.
Yeah, fireplaces. So now he has approval to rotate his home theater setup so that it faces the fireplace. And before we worry about a TV mounted too high, they're actually going to remove the fireplace and the stone around it and everything else. entirely. The bookshelves on either side are staying, though. The room is now definitely going to be all about theater. Dracula curtains, as I apparently called them. I don't remember. My brain is going. An electric roll-down screen in between the bookcases. Ceiling speakers for Atmos. The whole works. All right.
Sounds nice. And it's a nice-sized room once it's dedicated to being a theater, so that's going to be cool.
Yeah, so he's got a door in the back, folding doors to the right. The fireplace will be on the... What was the fireplace will be on the left. No,
well,
that's the old one.
That's the way things were laid out before.
Okay.
Now,
but now he's going to turn it.
The screen is going to be where the fireplace is. The folding doors are going to be at the back.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So it just so happens that his Denon AVR X2000 died on him. He wants to upgrade to Atmos anyways, but would it make sense to have his X2000 repaired and then sell it, or should he just get rid of it? If he gets rid of it, what's the responsible way to recycle it? Every town has electronics recycling drop-off points. You'll have to look to see what yours is. I know that that's the case here. You just look it up on the website and say you have electronics to recycle.
Yeah, where I am, it's like literally the same place we take our cans. So
yeah,
I don't know if that's the case where you live.
Yeah, you'll have to see.
Yeah.
I mean X2000. That's like how many years old now? 4? Is it? Feels like
well, it should be the same
3.
year as when your 4000 came out. So
yeah, I feel like that's like 4 years old, but I don't necessarily think. I mean, I think that the cost to repair it is going to be more than you'll probably. I don't know what died means. I mean, what does died mean? Usually, this is what I would do. I would figure out if it had fuses and where the fuses are, and check them to see if they're busted. If they are, then replace them, and then you have a functional receiver you can sell. If you can't or they aren't, then I would just recycle it because it's probably
because most repair places charge you a fee just to look at it.
Yeah, it's gonna be $50 to look at the thing.
So.
Right, $50 to look at it, and you're not gonna get out of that for less than $100. And an X2000, I mean, what are you gonna get for that? I would be happy if I got $50 for it, but I sell things for cheap.
I mean, you could also just sell it for parts on eBay because sometimes people buy it. Like you'll get something at least.
This is what I would do. I would put it up on if you can't fix it yourself. I would just put it up $50 or best offer, Craigslist, eBay, whatever, and see what comes in.
Obviously list non-functional, sold as is.
As is.
There you go.
Non-functional.
Yeah.
All right, he's done experiments and determined that the 48-degree field of view is what he'd like to go for. However, the width between the bookshelves is 97 inches. So we've always recommended tab tension screens, but those are at quite a bit of width, which is true. So he'd be limited to a 92-inch screen, or if he does go non-tensioned, he could fit a 100-inch screen. Now, ideally, he'd like to sit about a third of the room's 20-foot length from the back wall. So another option would be to mount the screen in front of the bookshelves rather than in between them. That would likely mean the screen needs to be acoustically transparent, though. So what do we think he should do? I see no reason why it has to be acoustically transparent.
Well,
I mean, that's a big bookshelf, dude. I mean, it's a big bookshelf, right? I mean, it's just going to be way on the outsides. Or you can have just your speakers lower, right? Have them underneath all the way across and kind of angled up.
I mean, if he goes large enough to get the field of view that he wants, it's going to be a pretty big screen.
How big?
I'm thinking he's going to be sitting roughly 6 to 7 feet from the back wall because he says he wants to be about a third of the way into the room. And then I'm figuring if you do have this larger screen that's going to be in front of the bookshelves, then there's going to be at least 2 feet from the screen to the front wall to allow for the speakers to go behind their 2 or 3 feet.
Yeah.
So at that point, he's got about a 12-foot viewing distance. And from 12 feet to get the size of screen, or the field of view that he wants, 48 degrees field of view, he'd need a 150-inch diagonal screen.
Okay.
The width of the case for that is 153 inches if you go with the tab tension. And if you're going to go acoustically transparent, then I definitely recommend going tab tension.
Yeah.
Because that's quite important to maintain the spacing in the little holes where the sound comes through. If you were to shrink that to an 11-foot viewing distance, which would be entirely reasonable because that's maybe moving your seat half a foot farther from the back wall and the screen half a foot away from the front wall. So it'd be easy to get yourself to an 11-foot distance from eyes to screen. Then you go with a 135-inch screen size. The case for that would be 140 inches wide. So either way, it would have to be in front of the bookcases. Now, I mean, 150-inch screen, if you end up going with that, is tall enough that you can't stick all the speakers below the screen.
Yeah.
And if you put them on the sides, they'd be pretty close to the side. Well, I mean, there's a pretty good strong argument for putting the center speaker at a minimum behind the screen.
Right.
And if you're going to go this big anyway...
He's only got 2 seats in his room to begin with, right?
Well, he's going with like a couch, as far as I know.
But I'm saying, it's basically, it's not going to be
like
multiple rows of seats. Yeah, it's not going to be multiple rows of seats.
No, I haven't heard anything like that in the plans, so...
So, I mean, I still think you could go to the sides. I mean, yeah, they'll be close to the side walls. So are mine in this room right here.
But
and a lot of people do that. The center, you go underneath and angle it up. I don't see any problem with that.
Well, either way, I'm still thinking that the plan of attack here is put the screen in front of the bookcases.
Oh yeah, I think trying to fit it in that space is a fool's errand.
To fit it in between the bookcases and having to limit yourselves to 100 inches maximum. Now you've got to sit 7 feet away.
Yeah, to get your field of view that you want. Yeah, I totally agree. You have to bring it out in front, and bringing it as close as you want to or you need to, in order to make sure you've got your field of view that you want. Now, this does put your speakers sort of in the room. Like I'm wondering if he's willing to put them on the bookshelf.
Well, no, because he's got the EMP Tech towers.
So he's going to already have them in the room anyway. So you might as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he might want to put them in the corners to begin with, just to keep them out of the way.
Out of the way of the bookcases.
Yeah, exactly. He might not want them to be just shadowing this thing. Yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay, so we're saying acoustically transparent, optional. I mean, if he wants to do it, I'm not going to tell him not to.
So if you can, why not? I suppose, but it's going to like quadruple the cost of that screen.
Yeah, but I think we're in agreement. Go for the larger size. I'm saying 135 inches would be really nice because that's easier to light up, especially if you want to start doing HDR from a projector. Right. Lighting up a 150-inch diagonal screen, trying to get to 100 nits, which is the HDR standard for projectors. That's a challenge. Like the Epson 5040 UB can barely do it at 135, can't do it at 150. So that's something to consider. I would go probably for 135, maybe sit 11 feet from that, eyes to screen. And then acoustically transparent or not, up to you.
Yeah. So once the screen and seating are nailed down, would it make more sense to stick to 5.2.4 in his room, or should he go for 7.2.4? Dude, this is a 20-foot deep, and you're going to be sitting somewhere between 11 and 12 feet away. There's no reason you can't do 7.2.4.
I would go for it.
There's no reason you can't go for it. I'd be honest with you. I have just found so little benefit of having 2 speakers behind me. That it's just me that's saying that, and maybe I'm not experiencing it the way I'm supposed to, or I just haven't had the right
or,
thing.
you haven't done object-based audio yet, so there could be
I haven't.
Bit more. Although it's still, I will confirm, it's rare, the rare occasion that something actually, an object moves around behind you.
Occasionally, it does have that effect. I think that you get 90% of that experience by just your surround speakers anyways, because of the phase and how they move everything out. Okay, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say start with 5.2.4 and experiment with 7.2.4 by borrowing some speakers or do something like that. Experiment with it after you've got this thing all set up. If you're doing wiring, then wire for 7.2.4.
Yeah, wire for it for 7 for sure.
But if you're not doing wiring, if you're that's something you could do later or whatever, then just experiment with it, because I'm wondering if it's something that you're really going to find that is enough of a benefit.
Yeah, I would say you're going to have the space behind your seats where it makes sense. Like, there's some setups where I'm saying don't do 7 because you don't have enough space behind your seats, but in your case you do.
Right.
So there's an argument for that. You're using the EMP Tech speakers, so adding an extra pair of bookshelf speakers behind you isn't a gigantic cost, at least. It's pretty reasonable. For certain, if you're pre-wiring it all, going through your new ceiling that I think he said he was putting in, absolutely wire for it, and then, you can choose.
So he says he regularly makes use of Zone 2. However, fewer pieces of equipment would be a plus. So he's hesitant about adding any external amps. The Denon AVR X6300H has 11 built-in amps, so he can use that to power his 5.2.4 in his theater and Zone 2 all from a single piece of equipment. So could he do that, he's asking. Is there some way to do the same thing with less expensive X4300H?
No.
First of all, you can do it with the X6300 because it's got all the amps, and you cannot with the X4300H because it doesn't have enough amps.
Right, yeah. The X4300H has 9 amplifiers built in. You could set that up as 5.2.2 in the theater and then power zone 2, but
Right.
I wouldn't recommend that. You definitely want to have 4 overheads if you're going to go doing Atmos.
I gotta be honest, I'm a little hesitant well, I guess I'm a little confused as to why he's worried about having fewer pieces of equipment. I mean, I don't understand what the number of pieces makes that much of a difference. I mean, I think that even if you go with the Denon 6300H, you may find that the noise floor increases because of trying to use all the amps that you end up wanting to buy an external amp anyways. Might just be easier just to go ahead and get the amp now. I mean, they're not that expensive.
Yeah. And those
not,
EMP
not for
tech
2
towers,
channels.
they can get loud by absorbing a heck of a lot of power. They're not super efficient.
Yeah, they're not
and they can take a good amount of power. So, I mean, my recommendation to you would be to get the X4300H and then get an external amplifier.
Yeah.
Which is actually the next question anyway. So.
Yeah, so which amp should he buy? Now, there's a whole lot of them out there. It used to be that we recommended the one that I've got that we don't recommend anymore. What's the one I got? What's the one I have?
Oh, the Dayton?
The Dayton Audio, right.
That was just a 2-channel, though.
It's just 2-channel, and you could literally get 2 of those or something like that.
Yeah, but they don't make them anymore.
They don't make them anymore.
To a Class D.
The Class D amp, and I'm hesitant to recommend those anymore. You got, of course, Emotiva is a good option if you're looking to spend a whole bunch of money. You could go the monolith route, but I don't think you probably are, nor will you need to.
No.
I don't think. You just need 2 or 4 channels of amplification to be safe.
Now, since he wants to do the whole Zone 2 thing, so in this instance, the way I would do this, I would get a 5-channel amp, because there's plenty of 5-channel amps out there. You could go Emotiva's Base X 5-channel amp, $500. The one I'm actually going to recommend to you is Outlaws Model 5000. That's $600, but it has more wattage per channel, right? The Base X one is 80 watts per channel. The Outlaw is 120 watts per channel. And since those towers are kind of power hungry, and that big center is too, I'm suggesting power your front 3 speakers in your theater with 3 of the channels, and then use the 2 remaining channels to do Zone 2, because the Zone 2 has to be an external amp in this setup. Right. If you're saying I'm using 11 speakers in my theater, because we might go 7.2.4. So if you're going to say I'm going to use 11 speakers in my theater and Zone 2, in that instance, Zone 2 must be externally powered. Right. So I'm saying get a 5-channel amp, 120 watts per channel, $600 for that from Outlaw, the Model 5000. And then you can power your front 3, which are the most power hungry, and your Zone 2. And the X4300H can then use 8 out of its 9 amplifiers to power your surrounds, surround backs, and top fronts and top rears.
Yeah.
That'll work out nicely.
He asks, is there an easy way to power an external amp on and off in conjunction with the AV receiver?
Yes.
I mean, most of them have some sort of standby mode, and they just wait for a signal to come in, they turn themselves on.
There's that.
But, I mean, it's just, they are, a lot of them have IR and everything else. You just plug them right into
there's the 12-volt trigger, which is...
There's that too, yeah.
It's a mono 3.5 millimeter jack cable. That's all it is. Right. A mono one. Make sure you get a mono one.
And it comes with it, yeah.
It usually comes with the amp. So the Outlaw 5000, it's got this little 3.5 millimeter jack that's right next to its power switch on the back. And then the X4300 has trigger outs. And you simply say, when I power on my X4300, send a signal from the trigger out, and that'll tell the Outlaw amp to turn on at the same time.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. And it'll turn itself off when you turn the X4300H into standby as well. So it's simple.
So the X6300H says it is made in Japan and has monolithic amplifier design. Does that make it clearly better and worth the price increase over the X4300H?
Not when you can use that money to buy the Outlaw.
No, I don't think so, dude. There's not really. I mean, the differences between one to the other. I mean, you're really looking at features here. And yes, they keep it in Japan or whatever, and I don't really know that really makes that. They have more control rather than sending it out to China. I don't really know that it's going to make that much of a difference. It's like, well, this car was assembled in the United States. I'm like, who cares? I don't care where it was assembled. I want to know whether or not it works. And it's going to work. They're both going to work. I don't think that there's any reason for you to spend extra money on the X6300.
No, I would definitely take the $500 difference in price and put that towards the 5-channel amp. To me, that makes way more sense.
So since he's using the EMP Tech speakers, he wrote RBH and asked them which in-ceiling speakers would be a good match. They suggested the A607s or the A615s. Any reason to choose one over the other, or maybe consider the similar-looking A600 model? And since they're dealer only, what's the best best way to find the best price for those? I did not look at any of these speakers. So
the A607 and the A615 are essentially the same speaker. One of them has just been discontinued and the other one is replacing it.
Yeah, there you go.
So that would be one reason to get one over the other. Which one is available? But they're identical in terms of specs and everything. The A600, the difference there. So the 607 and the 615 both have the pivoting tweeter in case you want to aim the tweeter. The 600 is a static tweeter. But
I would go with the 600. I mean, if it's cheaper.
If it saves any money, I'd go with the 600 because you just want to fire straight down.
I was gonna say you don't want to aim the tweeter anyways. You want it to go straight down. It's supposed to go straight down. That's the whole idea. So yeah, the 600 would be just fine. Now, how to get the best price? I mean, there is the non-zero chance you'll be able to find these speakers someplace for sale, like directly. They're not supposed to do it.
Yeah, usually you don't get a warranty when you do that.
You won't get any warranties and stuff like that. So call a bunch of dealers. That's what it comes down to.
On RBH's website, they have their dealer locator.
Yeah.
Chances are there's probably only going to be 2 or 3 at most in your area anyway.
If that.
Yeah. If that, exactly. So call them up.
Yeah.
Say, hey, I want to buy 4 of these. How much is that going to cost? If they insist on installing it for you, you can decide whether you want that to be part of the price or not.
Yeah, I would. And if there's no dealers in your area, this is going to sound crazy, but honestly, there are people who have become dealers for speakers because they wanted to buy the speakers and they didn't have anybody to buy speakers from, and they become dealers for them, and then you get them for real cheap. So you get them for the dealer price. So consider that. I suppose. I mean, you don't have to ever actually sell them. You just have to be a licensed dealer. I don't know how much that costs. Might cost something. I don't see why, but it should. Brandon is looking at buying some Aperion Audio Intimus 4B speakers for his surround and height speakers, but has a few questions before he pulls the trigger. His mains and center are Ascend Sierra 1s with the NRT tweeter. Will the 4Bs pair well with them? Now, are these those itty-bitty ones?
So the 4Bs, they're the satellite. They're the sealed 4-inch Aperion Intimus speaker.
I mean, I don't know. I think they should be okay, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, timbre-wise, they certainly won't be bad.
No, this will not be a complete mismatch, but I think they're going to... the problem here is not the size. I mean, it's really the size of the speaker. It's to me, what you're going for is this really itty-bitty speaker that is... maybe easy to wall mount or whatever, or ceiling mount, whatever you're trying to do. And for me, I'm more worried about how low they play,
which is a consideration with these. They don't play very low.
And for me, I think that's what you're going to be running up against. As far as Ascend and Aperion and a lot of these other speaker companies that we recommend, they all have sort of a neutral.
Yeah.
So
they're more similar than different, to be honest.
Yeah. So it's very easy to say, oh yeah, they'll sound fine. They're not going to sound like a completely different speaker in your room, a completely different instrument in your room. They're going to sound similar. I just don't know if this is a very good speaker to use if it doesn't play very low.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming it's, price because they're less expensive than Ascend's own HTM 200 SEs, and the HTM 200 SEs are a little bit physically larger as well. So maybe that's a concern. Because maybe one reason he wants these is because they are itty bitty, so that could be part of it. I'm not sure, but yeah, if the HTM 200 SEs aren't out of the question, then that's certainly one way to go because that's Ascend Zones. It's a different tweeter, it's a different series, but it's that much closer, and it's a very good design. And the HTM 200 SEs play plenty low, which is actually the next question. So
he knows the specs in the 4Bs have a -3 dB point of 120 hertz, which means according to the specs at 120 hertz they start to roll off, and they have lost 3 dB of their volume essentially, and then we would think that at that point it continues to roll off pretty steeply.
Oh yeah.
Will this cause issues crossing over to his pair of PSA V1500 subs? Should he set the crossover in the subs to be 120 for use with these speakers so you won't have any gap in the frequency response? Will that cause bass localizations issues? How, if not, how high can he set the crossover before localization becomes an issue? All right, so yes, this is what the problem that I was concerned about, which is these speakers are going to roll off fairly high. Where is localization an issue with subwoofers? Above 80 hertz, generally speaking.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say, because there's plenty of times I've used 120, even 150, and he says he has a pair of subs. So if you've got your pair of subs running in mono, even upwards of 150, I don't find it too bad at all.
And that's what I was going to be the next thing I was going to say. If you've got dual subs, this becomes less of an issue. A single sub playing above 80 hertz is much, and physically close to you, in my experience, if it's the closer it is to you, the more localizable it will be. Once you get two subs, it really helps quite a bit, and you can play it much higher. Yes, you will have to set the crossover, theoretically, whatever room correction you're using, will set the crossover to be something. And it'll probably be around 120 hertz. It might be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, depending on what it measures in your room. But yeah, and that's what you would have to do. Will localization be a problem? Maybe. But you won't know until you try.
Yeah, I would say that's okay. That's not panic mode yet. These don't have Bose cubes where the auto thing sets it to 250 and that's still not high enough. That's a problem. 120, 150, you're probably okay.
Yeah. So are there any other speakers of similar size and price that would be comparable to the Aperion Intimus 4B speakers? How much are these things again? Tell me.
I think they're $250 a pair in the gloss finish, and they're $200 a pair in the matte finish.
So the Super Zeros would be about that. They're about 110.
They're 125 each right now.
Okay. So it'll be a little bit more expensive. They're going to play lower, but they are physically very, very small as well. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, NHT Super Zeros would be a really good choice. I already mentioned Ascends, but they're more expensive, the HTM 200 SEs. The one I actually really like if you've got Sierra speakers are the Focal Birds. Right.
But those are physically going to be a lot larger, though, right?
Yeah, because if you go with the Birds, which are a 5.5-inch driver, there are, of course, the Little Birds, which are even less expensive. So you're looking at $300 for a pair of Birds, and that would be from Accessories for Less. If you go for the Little Birds, they're $100 each. But then you've got the higher crossover, but it's still not bad. Still looking at 120 hertz crossover. Right. So either that, Focal Birds or Focal Little Birds. My personal opinion is that they have quite a nice timbre match with the Sierra series of Ascend speakers, and easy to wall mount if that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some alternatives. Honestly, if you went with the 4Bs, I don't think that's a bad decision. Those are the alternatives. If I don't go with Ascend, I would probably go with the Focal Birds myself. But the Super Zero is also a great choice. So whatever's going to work for you, one of those will be fine.
Right. All right. Neil, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would we rank the Polk Monitor 60 Towers, and how would we rank the KEF Q300 bookshelf speakers? He suspects we probably prefer KEF to Polk, but how much? Put a number on it. I am totally not putting a number on this. First of all, I've never heard the Polk Monitor 60s.
Okay.
I've never heard them. I have heard the Q something towers from KEF, so I've heard that line. I like them. I don't know. The number has to be in relation to something. So 1 to 10 overall in all the speakers I've ever heard.
In all the speakers.
That's just not going to happen. I mean, what am I going to place that? Like a 6, maybe 6.5.
Which one?
The KEF's the only ones I've heard. I've never heard the Polks. I have no idea what those Polks sound like.
All right.
The reviews sound good. I mean, the reviews sound fine, but the reviews are all from people like, these are the first speakers I've ever owned. I'm like, that's very helpful. Or these are the second speakers I've ever owned. I'm like, oh, well, you're even better.
They were better than the first, yeah.
They were better than the first. They cost 3 times as much, and it was totally worth the money. I'm like, these things are like not that pricey. They're not. They're not that pricey.
So I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to say that 10 is a speaker I haven't even heard yet. All right. I'm going to say that the best speaker I have personally ever heard is going to be a 9, and I'm going to leave the room for a hypothetical speaker that might be even better. That's going to be my personal scale. So using that as my personal scale, I'm going to put those KEF Q300s, I'm going to put them about a 6, and I'm going to put those Polk Towers, because these are, which one? Yeah, these are the Monitor 60s, right? So these are Not quite their entry level. I think one step, or these
One
might
step.
be their entry level. In any case,
60s, and I know there's 60s and 70s because a lot of people are comparing.
I'm just
two.
thinking the monitor series because they've got that RS series, which is somewhere
don't
else.
know.
I
I
think
don't
monitors
keep
are
up with
entry.
Polk.
But anyway, yeah, the Polk Monitor 60s. I'm gonna put them at about a 3.5.
There you go.
I
That's
don't like.
Rob's it.
I don't personally like their high frequency roll off, which they have. I like a speaker that's got more detail and more high frequency extension. Now, the benefit of a high frequency roll off is huge sweet spot. Huge sweet spot. Because when you don't have the really, really high frequencies that are all directional and separating between your two ears, just by virtue of being super short wavelengths, you get a larger sweet spot.
The one experience I had with Polk, I think I remember them being very boomy.
They can be.
I might be thinking of a different speaker though. That's the problem. I've heard so many speakers. I mean, we just talked about this. There was somebody thanking me for my review of a speaker I don't remember reviewing.
Right.
So I've heard so many speakers. It's very hard for me to remember which. If I went back and looked at the reviews or something, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Polk is at an extreme disadvantage here as far as I'm concerned. Okay, and that is their mass market, which means they have to, meet price points. They have to sell in big box stores, which means that they are dealing with a product that they are having, to basically use less resources to make that maybe somebody like a Kef or a Perion or some of these other brands, they don't need to make as much overhead. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They don't have to make as much. They don't have as much advertising going on. They're not spending as much on all this other stuff. So I think that the Polks are a bit of a disadvantage here. But I've never particularly liked Polks all that much. But I'm sure there are very good Polk speakers out there, and the people who get these love them because they don't know any better. So who am I to judge? I mean, I am totally judging them, but I shouldn't, and that's why I'm not going to say what I'm thinking.
We're still gonna get flack.
Dude,
or I am. I deserve flack. That's fine. Send it my way. Whatever. It's one man's opinion. What does that matter?
It's his opinion. You asked for his opinion. I would never put a number on it, though. Not a chance.
Well, it's a very arbitrary number.
It is, and that's why I said the 6.5. I'm like the caps. I remember thinking these are pretty good. Yeah. That's a 6. Yeah, pretty good. It's a 6. I mean, they were like the best speakers I ever heard. I'd give these speakers in here maybe a 7.5.
Sure.
I mean, I like these speakers. I think they're great speakers. Are they the best speakers I've ever heard? No.
Yeah, I'd rate my own speakers. My own speakers, I'd rate like an 8.5, and the Pioneer Andrew Jones towers that I really like, I'd rate those maybe like a 4. So just barely above the Polks. Okay, if you want a relative scale on the Rob scale of speakers, there you go. Now you have an idea where I'm talking about.
Yeah, but when you factor in costs and you factor in all this other stuff, that number completely changes. That's right. You can get those Kefs like on sale accessories for less for ridiculously cheap prices. So it's really hard for me to say that they're really a 6.5. They might be an 8 when you factor in the fact that you can
I'm
get
not
them for like
factoring in price and value.
I know. We're just going absolute sound.
There you go.
Wesley's Denon AVR X4200W is dead. He was listening to music and all was well when suddenly no more sound from the left and right speakers, only a minuscule bit of sound from the sub. He shut it off, waited a while, and turned it back on. It turned it back on. It stayed on for about 2 seconds, then shut itself off with a blinking standby light, the only remaining sign of life. No error message was ever shown, either on the TV screen or on the receiver display. He unplugged it a number of times, one time for 5 hours, another time for 2 days. Every time he plugs it in, it turns on exactly the exact same. It turns on at the exact settings from which it was first shut off, and in 2 seconds, it shuts off again. He checked all the speaker connections for any loose or stray strands of wire, but all seems fine. Is it worth trying to get it repaired? Dude, is this not a short? I don't know what it is. It totally sounds like a short to me. This is exactly how this sounds. Now, I am not going to believe that this thing is 100% broken until you unplug everything.
Right. Everything except for the power cord.
And if it still does it, you're going to have to replace the power cord before I believe it, for sure. I'm going to be honest with you. I think the short could be anywhere.
This could be a processor fault. That happens. Okay, I mean, it's just like, when you turn on your computer and it won't post. Yeah. Which means the RAM, usually that means the RAM has become dislodged inside, or you have a processor fault, right? So it could be that these are computers inside. It
Yeah.
could happen. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I think it's worth trying to get it repaired, especially if Scott Wilkinson's news turns out to be true and the X4200 actually is going to get a Dolby
Yeah.
Vision update. Then you're pretty much feature parity with even the newest stuff. So I think it's worth. I agree with Tom. Unplug everything and see if you can just get it to power up at all. If that's still not working, absolutely get in touch with Den and get it repaired.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, we always say speaker wire connections because that's where they normally
that's the
lie.
most common. Yeah.
But somebody vacuumed over a cable and you've got a problem. Somebody pulled on the cable and it bent the terminal, so that it's just getting close enough to touch. That could happen there too. There's lots of things that can make this happen. So until you've unplugged everything, I'm not going to believe it's completely 100% broken. So he asks if it's not repairable, which receivers do we recommend? Maybe a Denon AVR X4300W, Marantz SR5011, or Marantz SR6011. His setup is only 5.1, and since he's in a small 11 by 12 foot room, it will probably stay that way. So 5.1. I don't think you need to go all the way to the 4300.
Not if you're doing 5.1.
I mean, 5.1. I mean, the 4300. It's got 9 amps in it.
9 amps, right? And can process 11 speakers if you want to.
You should be able to go 33 or 23 even maybe. What's the best Odyssey?
33. The X3300W, which is $550 from Accessories for Less right now. 7 amps built in, so more than you actually need, and multi-EQ XT32 with sub-EQ HT, whereas the 2300 bumps you down to multi-EQ XT.
Yeah.
So I would point you for this setup. If 5.1 is where you're stopping, I'd point you to the X3300W for sure. That's by far the best value.
Yeah. Jason is a coworker who's relatively new to home theater, and he mentioned to Jason that he was planning to put a 10-inch car subwoofer into an enclosure and use it in his home theater. Well, Jason's AV spidey sense started to tingle, telling him it seems like a bad idea, but he didn't actually know why it would be bad. Is it actually a bad idea? And if so, why? And how can he explain why to his coworker? Okay, I'm going to answer the last question first. Do not explain anything to your coworker. You shut your filthy AV mouth. I am being totally serious here. There's no conceivable
there's no good outcome to be had.
There is a conceivable way that this ends well, but the possibilities are so minuscule. Dude, seriously. This is what you do. You go, "Oh, wow, that's interesting. I'd love to hear it when you're done."
Sure.
That's all you need to say.
Yeah, if this is what this guy wants to do, then...
he should do, and he's going to come up with every reason in the world why it makes a good idea.
Yeah,
I harken back to a post on Audioholics forums a bazillion years ago from a guy who had more speakers than sense, and he wanted to use multiple speakers per channel and just kind of put them all in the same location.
Right.
And everybody's like, no, don't do it, because there's comb filtering and there's this and there's that. This is what I say. And that guy got super angry. And not only that, he was like, look at this theater setup. This is an actual movie theater. They have speakers all over the place. How come, if they can do it, how come I can't do it? Because your room's not 50 feet across and 100 feet deep. That's why. I mean, you don't have 150 people sitting in your theater.
You didn't actually build a line array. It might look somewhat similar to a line array, but it isn't one.
Dude had literally no interest in hearing any of this.
Right.
All he wanted to hear was, yes, that sounds awesome. Have a good life. This is what you need to say to him. Yes. Now, without knowing what the driver is, it's very hard for us to say definitively whether or not this is a good or a bad idea. There are plenty of subwoofer drivers out there that go in cars that can be made to work perfectly reasonably in a room with the right enclosure. There's no reason why it can't. Now, it has to be the right room. It has to be the right enclosure. It has to be a whole bunch of stuff. You don't know any of this. We don't know any of this. And therefore, we can't really say. Generally speaking, subwoofer drivers that are made for cars are completely different than subwoofer drivers that are not completely, but are different, have different, they're not made to fill up an entire room. They're not made to be in the kind of box that they're going to be in. They might not have the excursion or the
And a
the
heck of a
power
lot of them
handling.
are dual voice coil. That's really common in car subwoofer drivers.
Yeah, so we just let them do it. Just let them do it.
No.
The things that can go wrong are numerous. It's not just building a box and putting a driver in it. If it was just that, we would all be DIYing this stuff. Believe me, it takes so much more than that. And to really build a good one, I mean, got to remember, SVS came on and talked about their 2000 series subs. They went through 25 prototypes before they found the right driver. And this dude's just going to grab some subwoofer driver he has lying around and throw it in the box in his room and expect it to sound good. It's going to sound fine.
It's going to make
him.
sound. It's going to
It
play
will make
bass.
it'll play bass, it'll make sound, it'll be better than what he had, which was nothing. So therefore, it's a success, and let him have it. And when he comes to your house and hears your stuff and says, "Why doesn't mine sound like that?" I don't know, dude. I don't know. But maybe it's because your subwoofer driver sucks.
I mean, in general, subwoofer drivers that are designed for cars are designed for a smaller enclosure. Because
Absolutely.
if they weren't, like, where would you put it in the car? So
Yeah.
it has to be designed for a small enclosure, usually a sealed enclosure. And there's nothing wrong with either of that. It's just that tends to mean they probably aren't going to play down to 20 hertz, which is usually fine because what most people want is the tactile pound you in the back, pound
Right.
you in the chest bass, which is 35 hertz and up. That's where most of these things have the driver's own resonant frequency is going to be around 35 hertz in most car audio subwoofers. That's all fine. If the goal was to play down to 20 hertz in a really large room, that's not the right driver to use. So that would be a fine thing to possibly mention. But will this play bass? Will it function? Absolutely. So if that's what he wants to do, just the only advice, if he's looking for any, is this car subwoofer driver will, on its spec sheet or somewhere in the literature, will say what the cubic volume of air of the enclosure should be. It'll have that mentioned somewhere.
You're right.
Follow that, and it'll be fine. There.
Yeah, I would not offer any advice. I would not say anything. I'm being
No, I mean, if the guy asks, "Hey, is there something I should do to make sure I don't blow this thing up?" That's my piece of advice. The specs will say, "Here's how many cubic feet of air should be in the enclosure around this thing, and here's how many watts of amplification you should have."
I wouldn't
Follow
even
that.
mention the hertz thing at all, though.
No.
I wouldn't mention that.
Because what are they? What's he gonna care?
Yeah, he's not going to care. There you go. Have fun with that. Let us know how it works out. If you do hear it, I'm curious. Maybe he bought like this, $10,000 JL audio subwoofer driver thingy. Could be awesome. Mark's been looking at AV receivers and noticing that even the flagship models from the normal consumer brands top out at processing 11 channels. So clearly 7.2.4 works, but what about really large home theaters where 13 or more speakers could genuinely be useful? Is it possible for an average consumer to purchase and install something like 11.4.8 setup? Or do you have to use some sort of super expensive commercial grade product? Well, there's the Trinov one, right?
The Trinov, yeah.
That one's not. I mean, it's 20 grand? Is that what it is?
No, it starts at 30 grand, and that's the 16 channel model. So that'll only get you to 9.1.6.
Right.
If you want to do 11.4.8, like in this example, you've got to step up at least one model, which is getting you to $40,000. To get the full 32-channel version is $50,000. I would count that as a super expensive product.
I would too, but this guy's saying how could average consumer purchase and install something like 11.4.8 setup? Dude,
You can't.
There is no average consumer that needs 11.4.8. That's not. Those are categorically non-compatible. You do not have a room if you are an average consumer that's 11.4.8. It doesn't happen. Now, there are ways of having extra speakers if you do have a large room that still fits with the normal receiver brand, and having multiple if you have multiple rows of seats and you want to have multiple side surround speakers, there's no reason you couldn't do that.
Right, but those will all be one channel. So
It'll be one channel.
All of those speakers will be playing the same sound at the
Which
same
is the same
time.
thing that happens in movie theaters anyway, so what's the big
Yeah.
deal? What's the big
Largely.
deal?
But in a Dolby Atmos theater, that each one can be individually addressed.
That's true.
That is
That's
a difference.
True. There is a difference there. So I mean, there are ways of getting multiple speakers up into a normal average room without having to use the Trinovs. So he says, tying into this, Nathan noticed Emotiva's announcement they'll be showing their $5,000 RMC1 processor at CEDIA. The RMC1 is supposed to have 16 outputs, but they've indicated that it's 7.3.6 configuration rather than 9.1.6. They also announced that at the demo at CEDIA will be a 7.4.4 speaker layout because Dolby is still working on the software to allow more than 4 overhead channels. So, okay. So is that a question? That's just a statement, right?
Yeah, well, that was some news that came out because people have been waiting, of course, being Emotiva, waiting for this RMC1 processor. They've been promising that it's going to have 16 outputs for a long time. They got this image where it's showing Atmos as a 7.1.6 configuration. There is an RCAM processor out there right now that does 7.3.6. Exactly like what Emotiva is talking about doing, but that's more expensive than $5,000. So that's where the RMC1, if and when it ever actually does come out this way, could have the price advantage. However, there was that talk from Den and AVRant at their European launch event that they're working on new flagship models to replace the X7200 and the AV8802A. Those ones, I don't know how much they're going to cost, but they were saying they're going for 14 channels. So it's going to be like a 7.1.6 or something like that. Yeah, 7.1.6.
I got to be honest, I'm getting really concerned about the number of channels we're having.
That's a lot of speakers. It's a lot of wire, a lot of amplifiers.
It's the amplifiers where I think it's...
Well,
they're getting this
too.
Well, the amplifier is what's worrying me because I think we're getting to the point where we're putting so many. They are putting or planning on putting so many amps in these things that how are they going to have enough power? How are they going to have enough the ability to power all these speakers at the same time?
Well, if it's a pre-pro, at least it's all external. So
well, and I think that's what the direction we'll end up having to go. And suddenly we'll be not back, but we'll be into a situation where like pre-pros now make sense. We've for so many years now have been like, just use a receiver for a pre-pro. Why just ignore the amps? I just think now that it's at some point somebody's got to say, listen, we're not putting any more amps in these things.
Yeah, right. 11
We'll process a lot of speakers, as many speakers as you want, but we are done putting amps in these things because it's going to end up being too little power and too high of noise floor, and the thing's going to be a big electromagnetic conductor by the end of it. It's just going to put out interference like crazy.
Somebody's got to get to 24.4.10 though, because that's the maximum. That's what Atmos at home tops out at. So Trinov is going to get there, but
Trinov will get there for sure.
Yeah.
But they're not putting any amps in anything. So, all right, are you going to make me read this whole thing? Can't we sum this up? No, there's too much. Let me sum up.
That bad.
It's forever.
It's broken up into paragraphs.
All right, Anonymous. This comes from Anonymous. Okay, we know the person's name, but we're not telling you. Anonymous is in the process of getting his speakers, tweeters replaced by the manufacturer, so until everything is squared away, we're avoiding the details so that no blame mistakenly gets placed upon anybody. All right, so we're going to be real general with this.
Yes.
The speakers in questions have been recommended by us, and they use a planar type tweeter rather than a regular dome. Anonymous sits 10 feet away from these speakers and is powering them with an D&M AV receiver that's also been recommended by us and is rated to deliver slightly over 100 watts per channel into 8 ohms. He noticed that the sound had changed, so he went to the trouble of getting behind his acoustically transparent projection screen and discovered tears and holes in the tweeters. He was understandably shocked. He contacted the manufacturer. After some back and forth, the primary suspect described by the manufacturer was amplifier clipping. Some numbers were laid out saying the speakers have a sensitivity of 86 decibels, 1 watt, 1 meter, and that from 10 feet away with around 100 watts per channel from the amplifier, the maximum safe output level would be 97 dB at the seats. It was further explained that with the master volume set at 0 dB, there might be peaks as loud as 105, which might demand as much as 800 watts and would cause the amplifier to clip. All in all, clipping was blamed for destroying the tweeters and it was suggested that the Anonymous should never set the master volume higher than negative 10 dB. Does all of this add up? Is this something that we ought to be a much bigger consideration and cause for concern? Would adding the high wattage amplifier to his system ensure that this damage never happens again, even if he listens at reference volume? All right. The whole reason this is in here because Rob wants to say something. So I'm gonna let Rob. I'm gonna let Rob say the thing he wants to say. I just want to say that we need to go back to the very beginning of this and remember that the manufacturer, while not wanting to take blame for the damage, is replacing the
Right.
tweeters or the speakers or whatever.
Free of cost.
Free of cost.
No charge. Yeah.
It's not like they're stringing them along or this is not my fault. I'm not doing it. This is all being handled very professionally. But the real question comes down to from this guy is, or gal, not saying which one, is this right? Do I have to never listen at reference volume from my listening position? And
of
this
10
is
feet away.
of 10
which
feet
is
away.
Not far.
Right. And we know that many of you out there listen from 10 or 12 or 15 feet away, and we're like, dude, don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
Right.
So, Rob, is it fine?
Right. So I want to dig in these numbers a little bit because the numbers are factual, but I would say excessively conservative, right? Because these are essentially based on anechoic settings, right?
Right.
So the way that you get to something that has a sensitivity of 86 decibels, 1 watt, 1 meter, which is very normal for a lot of speakers.
Yeah, a lot of
very average sensitivity for a speaker. And then if you were to put 100 watts into that, what that would do is add 10 decibels for the first 10 watts and then multiply by 10 again to get to 100 watts, which gets you another 10 decibels. So at that point, you're outputting 106 decibels with 1 watt from 1 meter away. Right, so that it's important because that distance is in there. So you're hitting 106 dB with 100 watts from 1 meter away. Now, 10 feet is almost exactly 3 meters away. So in an anechoic setting, you would lose 9 decibels off of that, right? Which gets you to exactly the 97 decibel figure that was quoted by the manufacturer at the seats. But that's in an anechoic setting. So that's why I think this is maybe excessively conservative. Because in a real room where there are some room reflections, you don't really lose 6 decibels for every doubling of distance. You don't lose that extra 3 decibels for the 1 extra meter on top of it. My guess would be conservatively, I would say that you might lose 6 or 7 decibels. But even there, okay, we're saying 100 watts. Let's say you lose 6 decibels. Now you're down to 100 decibels with 100 watts at 10 feet at 3 meters. All right. That's where I think this would fall, which isn't that far off. We're talking 3 decibel difference, right? So to get to that extra 105 dB and how they ended up with this 800 watts potential figure, if you took the anechoic measurements, 97 dB is what you're getting with 100 watts at the seats. You double that, 200 watts gets you 100 dB. 400 watts gets you 103 dB. 800 watts gets you 106 dB at the seats. This is how you wind up with this 800 watts figure. Again, I think that's excessively conservative. I would say that from 10 feet away with speakers of this efficiency, you can hit 104 decibels, very close to full reference volume, with probably 200 watts, realistically. And this AV receiver was actually reviewed by Audioholics, so it had the full gene testing of the amplifier section.
Right.
And it actually hit its rated power, which was 100. It hit a little bit more than 100 watts per channel, 2 channels driven simultaneously, and then had peak power. So that extra little bit of power that it can get just for a very short amount of time, of about 175 watts. So not quite doubling the power for a full extra 3 dB, but 175 watts or so. So realistically, really, truly, genuinely, mathematically, maybe you cannot hit a full 105 decibels with this amplifier and these speakers from that distance. But you should be able to get pretty darn close, like 103, 104.
Right.
Right? Now, I know that these speakers, the manufacturer has, demoed them. People have listened to them at a distance greater than 10 feet, something closer to 12 or 13 feet, at greater than 100 decibels. But they did have a more powerful amplifier attached to it at the time. So all of this is to say, is it just sheer volume? Is it just sheer loudness of output that destroyed the tweeters in these speakers? And that seems unlikely. Right. These speakers can absorb 300 or 400 watts peak, 150, 200 watts continuous, but like 300 or 400 watts peak, they can absorb that. They can play sustained at over 100 decibels from greater than, or around 12 feet away. So the chances that just hitting 105 dB peak for a moment would destroy the tweeter. And what this is a blown tweeter. Right?
Yeah.
So Tom's blown a tweeter. I've blown a tweeter. But in both instances, it was basically user error. It was test signals that were played way too loud by accident, right? By accident.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me.
But that's more or less what happened to us. So I do think that it's a clipped signal. But most almost all AV receivers have what they call soft clipping, which is that when the signal is going to clip, a filter is applied, it chokes down the signal. It doesn't actually get as loud as what the signal is calling for, but that's to save your speakers. That's why they have a soft clipping circuit. It's a protection circuit.
Right.
So again, all of that is to say, I do think it's probably clipping because I know these speakers can play loud and you're not sitting terribly far away. But the source of the clipping, is it really just that you were playing normal content at reference volume and that exploded a tweeter, which seems very unlikely to me. What seems more likely is maybe there was actually clipping in the signal itself, which is a very easy thing to do, especially with data compressed audio signals. When Tom and I record our audio for AVRant on our microphones, on our computers, and then we compress it to MP3, the signal clips, unless we're careful. The signal isn't necessarily clipped before that data compression. After the data compression, there is clipping. And that's in the signal itself.
Right? Yeah. I have a compressor on right now that
a dynamic range compressor,
that keeps me from clipping while I'm speaking, so I don't go above 0 dB, whatever it's called, and that doesn't clip there. Then, but at the end, I compress everything again, so that we don't have as much variance in our volumes. This just helps make sure that you guys can all hear us without having to change the volume on your device as we maybe get louder or softer as we are talking, more or less animatedly. So this helps keep that dynamic range, but we can and do clip, especially if we get loud. When Liz was on last, I think she clipped a whole bunch at the very beginning, and then didn't.
And that was just a headset mic.
That was a real problem. Yeah,
the microphone itself was clipping, not even just the.
So the clipping can happen at the mic. The clipping can happen in the recording. The clipping can happen in the data when they compress it for you. There can be a lot of different clipping that happens. Yeah. If the recording itself is clipping, it is telling the speaker to reproduce a clipped sound.
Yeah, which if you were to look at a waveform, looks like it's supposed to be this nice wave going up and down, smooth like a sine wave, right? You get to a clipping and it turns into a flat line.
Right.
Which the speaker tries to produce that. And so, when you're talking about a planar type of driver, you can basically just take a piece of aluminum foil and try to just pull it apart. Next to impossible, right?
Right.
It's like it's got a lot of strength that way, but tear it sideways tears very easily. And that's unfortunately what a clipping signal will do. It's supposed to be moving back and forth very nicely. It's super strong that way, but then you get this signal that says go stop hard and go back the other way, and it twists itself.
Right.
And that'll destroy a dome tweeter too. So the reason I bring all this up is because he said, should this be a greater cause for concern, particularly about planar drivers or this particular speaker that we're not even naming, but if sitting 10 feet away playing movie content at reference volume was destroying tweeters, I am certain we'd be hearing more about that on our show, on every forum in the world. Like there would be people screaming bloody murder if sitting 10 feet away you couldn't play a normal bookshelf speaker at reference volume. So I do believe something went wrong here. It could be amplifier clipping, but that seems to me. My suspect is some signal that ultimately ought not to have been played, at least not that loud at full scale, caused that there was clipping in the signal itself. That would be my suspect. Yeah.
All right. Well,
it's tough.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are really informed right now. Basically, don't play clipped stuff is what the response
it's really because if you don't know ahead of time.
You
right?
don't.
You listen to a piece of music that you downloaded, it has some clipping in it. How would you know?
Yeah.
So it's really unfortunate because you say, well, you have to be a little bit careful. Maybe if it's something new, you just don't play it that loud the first time. Make,
Right.
make sure there isn't some horrible distortion or clipping in the signal itself.
Right.
But yeah,
Oh, we'll see.
sucky situation.
Robert, he says he understands the logic of always setting all speakers to small and keeps his own settings that way. But out of curiosity, what are some scenarios where it would make sense to set speakers to large? Obviously, one scenario would be if you don't have any subwoofers. But other than that, how might someone benefit from setting speakers to large?
I can think of one.
Can you? Hold on a second. Let me see if I can think of one. Because I've been thinking about it. And I'm like, I mean, if you have your speakers already set in the corners and they can play full range, like they have their own individual subwoofer in them or something.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of your front left right speakers really can genuinely play down to 20 hertz, and there are speakers that can. So you start with that, and then you have two subwoofers in the back of the room that are mirroring the towers in the front of the room. Now you essentially have 4 bass producing speakers in a symmetrical layout on your room. That could work.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only thing I can think of too. That's what I was saying. If you put them in the corners, if you had your 2 speakers in the corners and they could play full range, and you could put 2 subwoofers in the back corners doing the exact same thing.
One other scenario would be you physically have subwoofers, but in your AV receiver or processor, you say that you have large front towers and no subwoofers, and then you use an external device like a mini DSP to filter out the bass, send it to the subwoofers. So essentially you're just externalizing the bass management. But
there's no Lee, are you listening? There's no reason even if you have full range speakers, if you're not going to place your subwoofer so that they mirror in the back of the room where your speakers are in the front of the room, there's no reason to ever set them to large.
Yeah, I mean, in Lee's case, he doesn't have separate subwoofers, so okay. I mean, you're forced to at that point. You're forced to set your front left right speakers to large. You don't even get a choice in the matter.
All right. Anand. That's what I'm going with. Anand. I think I got it right that time. Anand recently upgraded his entire home theater setup so he can enjoy 4K HDR, and Atmos. His room is 20 by 12 by 9. But he's sticking with a 5.1.2 setup for the time being because this is a rented apartment and he can't mount any speakers on the walls.
Okay.
How is he getting them above him? Anyways, doesn't make any difference. That's right. Okay. So he was already using Klipsch reference series speakers, and Rob said the Klipsch Atmos-enabled module is the best of the upward-firing speakers out there, so he bought a pair of those and positioned them on the top of his front, left, right Klipsch towers.
Just to clarify, best that I've heard. I haven't heard them all. Heard.
He's read the manual and followed the Denon setup wizard and wound up with his X3300W configured for the 5.1.2 with top fronts. He's tried a few different Atmos soundtracks, but he wasn't experiencing much of the way of overhead effects. Any suggestions to improve his experience and notice a difference compared to a 5.1 True HD and DTS HDMA experience. Okay, this is not set up correctly, right? The top fronts.
You are correct, Tom.
Top fronts are actual speakers, and you have to set. Isn't there an Atmos module set up somehow?
Yeah, the label is Front Dolby.
That's a stupid name. I
know, but that is the label.
Of course it is.
And that is actually a very important setting.
Yeah, because if not, then it thinks there's speakers up there.
Yeah. Mainly when you've got an Atmos receiver and you are using upward firing speakers of any type, what the front Dolby, surround Dolby, rear Dolby settings and the labels for those speakers, it actually applies it's patented even by Dolby. It applies a very specific filter to those speakers. It's
like a target curve, right?
Basically. It's based on Dolby's research into head-related transfer functions, which are all the parts that, the external parts of your ear that alter the sound and actually allow us to detect when a sound is coming from overhead as opposed to in front of us or from behind us. It's all the little reflections that come off the pinna, the outer part of your ear, off your own skull, off your shoulders, all that stuff. They've researched that, come up with this very specific curve, and that gets applied to those speakers to trick your brain into thinking that the sound came from overhead. So it's a very important setting to have. So yeah, after you go back, so manually, you could either go through the setup wizard again, which would be fine, and this time this is the trick with Denon and Marantz. If you're using the wizard, you have to, when it asks you how many overhead speakers or what overhead speakers do you have, because it asks you that first in the wizard, you have to say, I don't have any.
Because you don't.
Then it'll say, how many Dolby-enabled speakers do you have?
Right,
or
right,
what
right.
Dolby-enabled speakers do you have? And then you can say, I have front Dolby speakers. If you're not using the wizard and you're just doing it manually, you can just go into the amplifier assign. It's not even in the speaker setup. It's in the amplifier assign. And you have to say, I have 5.1.2 with front Dolby speakers in the amplifier assign. And after you do that, you need to run Odyssey again.
Yeah.
Because now Odyssey is very important to run Odyssey again, because now Odyssey is going to go, oh, I know these are Dolby speakers, so I'm not going to try and make them flat. I'm going to try and make them match the Dolby head-related transfer function curve. So all of it very important. Change them to front Dolby and run Odyssey again.
All right. After applying Rob's advice and to set the modules as front Dolby, things sounded better.
Yay.
However, he also reran Odyssey, and it seems as though everything is louder now. Previously, he found minus 15 dB on the volume dial to be just right for his taste, but now with the new settings, he has to turn it down to minus 19 dB. Why would this change from front Dolby make any difference? For the 5 ear level speakers, 4 dB seems like quite a bit to be just variation from one Odyssey setup to another. Could it just be difference in perception? Oh, it's definitely not difference in perception, because I mean, it's objectively louder, or it's objective. Well, this is what I think happened. You now added new speakers. Okay. So you got these upward firing speakers that are doing, that they have to be level matched with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So the level matching happened, and when it did, I think the level, because of these new speakers, it adjusted the overall volume.
That could be.
In there. That's the first thing that came to my mind. And this is one of those things I'd be like, I don't care. You know what I mean? It's like, I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. This would be like a blip on a speed bump on the way for me to go back to not caring about what the dial was. I'd be like, oh yeah, got to remember, I like it minus 19 now. I don't know that it would make that much difference. Now, is there another reason that this could happen, Rob?
Yeah, this is a bit confusing to me. I mean, normally my suspect would be the microphone placement was different the second time around, which can make a significant difference, especially
difference,
if, closer to the back of your seat one time and not as close to the back of your seat the next time. That can make quite a large difference.
Right.
So that would be my prime suspect. Yeah. I mean, I'm fairly, the trim levels probably are different on your speakers each time. I'm not sure if you wrote them down from the first time and compared to the second, but they probably are different in the trim levels. I mean, to me, this isn't particularly something to worry about, because it's not. I mean, if there was some massive, 30 decibels difference, you go, what in the heck happened, right? 4 decibels. I mean, you're right. It seems like a little bit more than you expect, just as a variation from one
I think
setup
it's,
to the next. But
I think it's just microphone more than anything.
That's my top suspect. Yeah.
What I said before, that's certainly possible. That something in there changed because of that, but I think overall it's just microphone. And people don't believe me, but you can. Back when we used to do this with handheld devices, I used to hold it in my hand and hold it out as far to the side as. Which side should I go to? This side? Hold it as far out to the side as I could and do it, and I would get my measurements. And then one day I put it on a tripod and realized that just taking my hand off of it made a huge difference in the measurement, a massive difference. So sometimes, especially when we're talking about boundary reinforcement, if you're within 12 inches of the back of any part of your seat, or when you're in the room, or your door's open, or you know what I mean? I mean, or the fan was on or something, you know what I mean? It could be a huge difference. So I would just run Odyssey 2 or 3 times and then see if it ends up being consistent. In which case, assume that your old measurement was wrong and this one was right.
I also kind of wonder, because if you do the Odyssey setup, by default it turns dynamic EQ on.
Yeah, it could be too.
And if you had it turned off previously, and now it's back on because default put it back on when you reran Odyssey, that can make a big difference, because everything will sound, when you turn it down, things still sound louder because dynamic EQ keeps everything audible. So you turn it down even more to get down to perceptually what it was before. So it could be dynamic EQ.
Should be on. So
just
don't turn it off. So there's that too. Jonathan. The Verge's Next Level Technology series covered Dolby's experiments that gather EEG readings and other biometric data to track emotional and physiological responses of volunteers while they're watching movies and videos. Dolby says they're hoping to use the data to convince studios that Dolby technologies like high dynamic range, expanded color, and object-oriented sound can be used to elicit predictable responses from audiences to help to better convey an artist's intent. For example, with bright enough image of a flame, people's bodies will react as though the flame is real. Pain or aversion can be induced, and they can also track if a viewer is excited or bored by what they're watching. Jonathan wants to know if we think this is kind of creepy, or maybe it will actually lead to better movies. Forget traditional focus groups. Just gather all this data on a test audience and tweak the movie until they react the way the studio wants them to. Is it manipulation or a tool for better products and content? I mean, I think this is a great idea. I'll be honest with you. I absolutely love this. I don't think it's creepy. I think it seems creepy, but let's be honest. How many times have you got shivers down your spine because of music in a movie?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How do you think they did that? They sat there and they watched it as it happened. The movie Up, they were interviewing the guy who scored it, or gal, or people, I don't remember who it was, and they were talking about, as they were recording this, they would watch it and then they would do the music, because that's how they do that. They do the music. They said everybody was in tears as they had to keep stopping because people were crying as they were doing this music because it was so emotional.
Yeah.
That's how they know they're doing it right. That's how they know they're doing it right. You get that shiver down your spine. You get that feeling of fear. You get that feeling of excitement. You get that feeling of dread. You feel that feeling of emotional connection to the content that you're watching. They're doing it right now. If the science can make it happen a little bit better, I do not think they're going to sit there with a bunch of, Clockwork Orange people staring with their eyes peeled open and people putting drops in them so that they can get the exact right emotional response out of everybody. I don't think they're going to do that. But what they are doing, what Dolby, I think, is trying to do, first of all, it's just a marketing thing for them. Like, we can actually show hard data that shows that.
Right. When you can get this bright at this color, there's a physiological response that nobody can stop.
That's right. Yeah. But then again, we're all having those physiological responses anyways. So I don't think it's creepy at all. I like it.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's creepy. I do think it's manipulation, but I don't think that's automatically a bad thing.
It's the whole point of movies. Are you kidding me? That's the whole point. We want to be manipulated. What's the last thing that we want to have happen when you're in a movie theater? So you don't want somebody or anything to distract you from the immersive experience. That's why we have all these speakers. That's why we have these big screens, right? We want to be immersed and we want to forget everything else. And if this helps us get there, 2 thumbs up from the Tomster.
I mean, honestly, if this starts getting movie makers to care and think more about eliciting an emotional response from the audience, I'm all for it, because that's what I want from movies.
Yeah.
I want to be emotionally moved, and a lot of movies don't do that for me. So if this improves that, even if it's simply because the image on screen is scientifically designed to make me feel something, even when the characters in the story don't necessarily do so, I'm kind of all for it. Like, I want an emotional experience. That's what I'm watching
Why
stuff for.
do bad movies get Oscars for great scores?
Right.
Why? Because the score is great. It still elicited that response from the listening audience, even though the movie itself was kind of horrible. And then you ask yourself, why didn't somebody, after viewing this movie, not look at the director or the writer or them go, are you kidding me? Like, okay, I'm going to harp on Batman v Superman, but I'm doing it again. No one sat there and said, really, Martha? You're going with Martha. Are you kidding? Are you joking? Is he joking with me right now? Is this a joke? No one said that. No one said, my kid is 11 years old, and I could hear his eyes rolling when it happened. Could hear it click around his little head. You cannot tell me that this is not a good idea. I mean, someone needs to do this. Someone needs to do that.
If you could have the data where somebody's saying, my intent was to get people to get choked up at this point, and this data shows you that everyone is laughing at it, That's valuable.
There's no data. You just go in the room and look around.
Yes, but I mean, maybe that would be unconvincing. Maybe this is what they need is charts and graphs with numbers.
Now,
to prove
I have been to screenings of movies, and they take and they ask questions of people. There is no way they didn't get feedback that said, dude, the Martha thing is dumb. Like, straight up stupid, right? The Martha thing is not, that's not happening. They must have gotten that feedback, and then they were like, listen, we already made the movie. What are we going to do now?
Yeah.
I'm like, I know what you're going to do now. You're going to go back to the drawing board and fix it because it's dumb. It's so bad. All right, I'm sorry. I'm never gonna let that go. I am never gonna let that go. I'm sorry.
Justice League has its work cut out.
I actually went back and watched Suicide Squad again. It wasn't as bad the second time. I liked it a little bit better the second time. It was a waste of a movie. Perfectly good movie. It could have been a lot better, but it was better than I remembered it being. But then again, I'd seen Batman v Superman. Bobby has decided to take our advice for his roughly 12 by 12 foot theater room and add the Klipsch R14 surround on-wall speakers to his front 3 Klipsch speakers while using the outdoor speaker depot in-ceiling speakers for the Atmos positions. The last piece of his audio puzzle is subs. Excuse me. He tried some different spots with this old subwoofers, found that he had some dead spots in the seats, so he knows he wants dual subs. He is considering dual SVS PB1000s, but he'd like to know if there are any less expensive alternatives that are just as good. Are the PB1000s overkill? Aren't they overkill? Shouldn't he just get the SB1000s? I mean, it's real close. It's real close. 12 by 12 by what, like 8?
Yeah.
I mean, seems
so
close.
There's no difference in price. The PB1000s probably can play louder than you, but to me, it's all about getting that actual 20 hertz output. And
yeah,
really,
I know.
There are no.
But they're so much bigger. They're so
I know.
much bigger. They are so much.
This is a dedicated theater. I mean, why not?
Does he want to spend less, or he doesn't care about the money? He cares about the money.
He'd like to spend less if it's possible. If there's something just as good for less, he'd go for that. I don't really think there is. I don't know of any subs that genuinely play down to 20 hertz for less than $500. I mean, other than something that you might build yourself. That could exist.
The car subwoofer. You should just get a car subwoofer driver.
You have to be careful in your choice.
Throw it in a box.
But if you just want to go buy a subwoofer that genuinely plays down to 20 hertz, the PB1000s are about the cheapest way to get there. And if you get duals, it's actually, you get a little discount, right? Get a $50 discount for getting duals.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. Yeah, right, 10%, something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, they're the right choice. I mean, yes, are they overkill in the sense that they can actually play even louder than you truly need? Okay, yes, but to hit 20 hertz, that's what you need. Yeah. Now, if you wanted to spend $400 instead and get a subwoofer that plays down to 25 hertz instead of 20, I got no beef with that. If you're like, hey, I would like to save that money and I'm fine with 25 hertz extension, you got RSL with their Speedwoofer 10.
Right.
You got HSU with their VTF 1.
Right.
You got Emotiva with their BassX S12. Right. All $400 subs that play down to about 25 hertz. Totally fine. But if you want to do 20 hertz, PB1000s. That's my take.
Yeah. If you want to go smaller, you can go to SB 2000s. But those are like,
then
what,
it's more money.
$800, right? Something like that. $800 for those.
Considerably more money.
I know. I'm just saying. It could be a lot smaller. Those things are big. Eric, after our advice last week about upgrading his front 3 Pioneer Andrew Jones speakers to try and improve dialogue, clarity, and detail, he's going to give us some info because I said that, it's a room. He has at least 8 feet from the back of his seats to the wall behind him, so there's no reflection there. His distance from his front speakers is around 12 feet. The room is fully carpeted and has thick drapes on the side walls, and while it might not be acoustically treated, it's definitely not highly reflective either, so he's actually put a fair amount of thought into the acoustics, having done plenty of research on the forums. So now he's trying to decide whether he should start with just a center speaker while keeping his Pioneer towers for the time being, or whether having a perfect timbre match across the front 3 is vital, as many forum members have suggested. Dude, those dudes are totally wrong. But let's go on.
Well, I'm kind of on that side.
No,
I mean, you
are not. They are saying perfect timbre match is vital. Is not vital. And, by the way, it's not a perfect timbre match. It's not.
But I am definitely a fan of, and I like the way James Boujel puts it when he comes on the podcast. Right, you got a car driving across. You don't want it to go from being a Volkswagen to a Ferrari to a Volkswagen. Right, you don't want that. You want a timbre mismatch that bad.
No,
you want it to stay the same model of
could
car
have like
as it travels from left to center to right, or vice versa.
Nissan to Toyota to Nissan, something like that. Camry to an Altima to Camry. Though I don't really. Maybe a Camry to a Accord to a Camry would be okay. That's it. All right. After discussion, his top three candidates are now the HSU Horton Loaded Center, Ascend CMT 340 SEs, and the Purion 5C. With each of these, if you went for their basic black finish and bookshelf left right, you could afford to buy all three front speakers right away. So how would we rank those three, and how would we describe their sound compared to one another and compared to his Pioneer speakers? He generally likes the Pioneers, but finds them a bit dull in the high end, a bit muddy in terms of detail. So those are the main things he'd like to improve. Okay, I haven't heard the HSU, so I can't say that.
Yeah, you heard the version 1s that you weren't a fan of at all, but they've been updated and certainly improved in the version 2s.
I don't know these models. I know that you've heard the CMTs, Rob, but the Purions, the 5Cs, I haven't heard those either. So I haven't heard any of these. But generally speaking, I think you'd be fairly well off going with any of these three speakers. I would say that the Ascend and the Purions are probably more alike than they are different, though I don't know that for sure.
I'd agree.
And the HSU is going to sound probably compared to the other two different. Will it be better different? I don't know.
The HSU is certainly it is more efficient. It is more directional. So if you're going to pick one speaker out of these that probably sounds the most different,
it would be the HSU.
It'd probably be that one. Now, if you're getting all three at once, then the timbre match across those front three isn't going to be a big problem.
No.
And the extra efficiency is, might be nice. But generally where I like these speakers is someone who's sitting a little bit farther away.
Yeah.
Because the extra efficiency really helps you there. Or they have a little bit more of a reflective room because then the more directional sound, it's not as wide a spread of sound. It's a little bit more beamy. It can be a help if you have a more reflective room. So it's those situations where I'd probably point you there. I mean, to me, the Aperion 5C is like a super safe choice here.
Yeah.
Because the Pioneers are already very neutral. I can totally understand what he's saying because they have a bit of a high frequency roll off.
They do.
And Andrew Jones himself has made no bones about that. He's like, for a $130 tower, I had to make some compromises.
Yeah.
And rather than having it sound shrill, I decided to have a little bit of a high frequency roll off. That is a better compromise in his view. And I agree with that choice.
Yeah, 100%.
But you're saying they're a little bit dull. I could like a little bit more detail. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Now, the Aperion 5C, really neutral speaker, just better. I'm like, it's what you have, but better. Right? Which to me, I'm like, how could you be unhappy with that? Right? The Ascend, very similar. I mean, I'm going to say definitely more similar than different.
Yeah.
To me, the Ascends don't sound the same as the Pioneers. I think they have, I always say that Ascend SE Tweeter, I consider it a cut above because it has very little residual energy, very low distortion, which is kind of almost a plus and a minus because when you first hear it, a lot of people's first reaction to Ascend speakers is, how come these sound quieter?
Yeah.
It's very similar to like when you get your first pair
sub.
of really low distortion subs and everyone's first reaction is, why does my bass sound quieter? And it's actually because with a complete lack of distortion, our brain goes, well, that's not very loud. When we hear distortion, our brain equates loud with distortion. So if you get used to speakers that have a bit more distortion to them, they sound louder. You get something with less distortion, you go, they sound quieter. They're not as room-filling, right? So I think if you were to upgrade to Ascend, you'd go, there is a difference, and you might not even like it right away. I often say that Ascend speakers, you like them more by their absence. You get used to them, then you take them away, put in something that has higher distortion. You go, oh, I'd rather have the cleaner sound back now, please.
Right.
So to me, I'd probably point you to either the Ascends or the Aperions in your case. I think they're better suited for your situation. I think they're both very safe choices.
Intimus is on sale right now.
Yeah.
They're $200. That speaker is normally $350. It's $200 right now, and the entire gloss line is up to 43% off.
Whew. Well, there you go.
So there's your
That tips you.
get Intimus Gloss Black closeout. The towers are 240. The 4T towers, the 5B bookshelves are 270.
Yeah.
The center channel is 200.
Yeah, that's huge.
You could get a.
You could probably get 5 speakers.
You could. I'm looking at it right now, but
Four bookshelves and the center, because then your surrounds will perfectly timbre match too. How nice would that be? No,
right.
I mean, if you were to get the Aperion 5C and the matching bookshelf speakers to go with that,
the 5Bs.
I would be shocked if you were disappointed.
So
I mean, I really would.
740 for 5 speakers.
I mean, he had a $600 budget, so I mean, you can definitely do the 3.
But you could get all of them for $740.
Yeah.
No stands though. No stands. All right.
Yeah. There you go.
Ted bought the Sony UBP-X800 Ultra HD Blu-ray player that we've recommended a few times on the podcast for anyone who doesn't need Dolby Vision support. Ted is still waiting to upgrade his display and AV receiver, so he's currently using Panasonic 1080p Plasma and a Denon AVR 790. That's an old one. Since neither are 4K or HDCP 2.2, he ought to just be able to use one HDMI output connection for now. Correct?
Should be able
Should,
to.
but I don't see any reason why not. It can put out 1080p.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be
Yeah,
fine.
you should be able to set the Oppo to 1080p output,
Yeah,
plug that into your AV receiver, and have the AV receiver pass.
It's not
along with the
Oppo, it's a
Panasonic.
Sony UBP
Sony, sorry.
X800. Okay, don't mess with me, dude.
I misspoke. I screwed up.
All right, that's fine. Okay, just in case, he tried sending video directly to the Panasonic Plasma. He used the X800's second audio-only HDMI output to send audio to his Denon AVR, no matter what connection method he uses and what setting he's tried on the X800 player. The image is ridiculously soft. Even the menu is blurry and has tons of anti-aliasing, as though the player is sitting on a 480i image. His other sources look sharp as a tack, so what is going on here? Dude, I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I've read several reviews of the Sony X800, and a couple of them have mentioned connecting it to a 1080p display because they want to see if it can down convert an Ultra HD Blu-ray to something that looks good on a 1080p. And they're like, it does it really well. Everything looks sharp and clear. And upscaling DVDs, they say it does a really good job of that. So I honestly don't know.
Check the settings on your TV. Is it possible that you're on sometimes they have like one HDMI input that's like better than the others or worse than the others? Is it possible you'll try a different HDMI input? Is it possible your TV is forcing it to send out a 480i signal for some reason?
Although he said he tried going into the AV receiver first, which means the output from the AV receiver is going to the normal whatever input he's using on the TV
but he
for all
said
his
that
other sources.
He didn't say that. He said just in case.
He did try that first, and then he also tried the separate. He's like, no matter what, he's tried manually setting the output resolution of the Sony player to all of its different settings, and no matter what, it's looking super blurry. I really don't know. Because that doesn't line up with any of the reviews I've read of this player. I haven't experienced the player for myself, but if it was this, somebody would have commented on it.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm guessing there's a button. I hate to say that, but sometimes there is. Sometimes there's a button on the remote that
doesn't even have any analog outputs of any kind.
Yeah,
so it's not that. This one is stumping me. I truly don't know what this would be, because from everything I've read about it, it's very good at scaling anything to 1080p.
I've had players before. I don't know that this is one of them, and it was an Oppo player where you had a resolution button on the remote you could cycle through the resolutions and it was great because then I could use it to test displays. I could send it the 480i and see what it did.
I'm trying to think, could there be like a screw up in the EDID information from the Plasma that's telling the player to output 480 resolution or something? I mean, I'm a bit stumped by this.
You should be able to force it to send out 1080p or 1080i.
Which he did. He said he set the player to not auto, but 1080p. And it still did this. Still looks super blurry. Even the menu, right? When even the menu of the player comes up looking all weird and blurry.
That means that's the whole thing.
That was just weird.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you just got a lemon.
It could be
It's not
that. Take it
completely
back.
out of the question. Yeah.
He says the X800 supports Netflix. How could you tell? It was blurry. And so according to reviews, it can send 4K and HDR from Netflix as well as 24p instead of converting everything to 60 frames per second. But right now with his 1080p equipment, he's finding that the Netflix app won't send Dolby Digital Plus audio, only Dolby Digital 5.1. Also won't send Super HD, which is Netflix's highest 1080p quality. Should you just return this player in favor for a different brand, or is it something Sony is likely to fix with the firmware update? Well, dude, at this point, I have no idea what's going on with this player. You should return this player and have them give you a new one of the same brand.
I would exchange it first.
Yeah.
Because this is weird. Now all this Netflix stuff, that could just be the case. It is one of the.
It could be how fast your connection is too. I don't know, man. If you got T1 line going into your house.
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, since this is an internet connection, either Wi-Fi or Ethernet going into this player, it's possible that the player itself is not, working with high enough bandwidth to make Super HD work. Because Super HD that doesn't really have any. I guess there could be a Netflix app out there that doesn't support it, but that would be weird.
There is, oh man, I've got it saved too on my Netflix account, and Ted probably knows about this, but search for it if you can, or maybe we'll find it and post it in the show notes. There is a specific video that you can stream that will tell you from Netflix. It's like a test video that will tell you what resolution you're getting.
Although he probably knows that if he knows that it's not doing Super HD.
Yeah, I don't know. So maybe something like that's going on or something. I don't know, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
this whole thing is screwy.
The Dolby Digital 5.1, that I'm not super worried about because people think that Dolby Digital Plus automatically means higher quality, but it doesn't. Dolby Digital Plus can mean less bandwidth than vanilla Dolby Digital at the same quality as Dolby Digital, which is why streaming services like it.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean higher quality. And a lot of players, they take the Dolby Digital Plus stream from Netflix, internally convert it to just regular Dolby Digital to output it, but you don't actually lose any quality.
Yeah. I wouldn't worry about that at all.
That I'm not super worried about. You don't even have the option of Atmos output until you have the 4K resolution streaming plan. You have to go to the highest tier and pay the most per month to even have the ability to output Atmos. So if that's what you were worried about, is that you're not getting Dolby Digital Plus bitstream right now, and you're worried about Atmos. You don't even get that until you're using the 4K tier. So that could be one part of it.
Yeah, he might not be paying the extra for it. I mean, why would he?
Yeah.
He doesn't have 4K anyways, so why would he? So that could very well be it too. So Ted got the Pile audio subwoofer isolation platforms we suggested. If they cut the bleeding of the bass to the room downstairs, it's only by about 1 dB, he thinks.
Yeah.
So if that, maybe it was nothing. It didn't sound very significant to him. So they definitely were not effective in his case. So is he doing something wrong? Would some other dampening device work better? Yeah. How about closing the door? Could we do that? Is that not factoring in here? Because this is the door that never closes, right? If I remember correctly.
This is the door that never closes.
I mean, listen, there is no isolation platform that's going to keep the bass in this room if you do not close the door.
Now, I was thinking maybe the door downstairs, like this is the room directly below the theater.
Right, I understand.
And maybe the door to that room is closed, so he's thinking, well, if I go into that room downstairs and close the door, the bass isn't as loud, but now I can hear it coming like straight down through the floor. Right. I don't even know if that's the situation, but I'm thinking that's a potential scenario. So I mean, this is kind of why.
Do you have an air exchange? I mean, between these two rooms, a lot of times they have the vents that just go straight through.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can't share an air return.
If they share an air return, there's nothing you can do about that. This is stopping the structural shaking of the sub from shaking the structure of your house and making it reverberate in other rooms. That is what this isolation platform is fighting. What it does not do is stop the air in the room from leaving the room.
Yeah, if there's any flanking path, and it could be the electrical outlets.
Exactly.
Your electrical outlets are not airtight sealed. The air can move in behind there. If you share a bay between electrical outlets, top and bottom, the bay is that's a flanking path. It's gonna go right through.
I guarantee this is a air return thing. I mean, the rooms on top of each other.
Yep.
They're gonna share an air return. There's gonna be two vents that are probably 2 feet apart.
Or maybe he just has no closed doors on either of them, which would explain it.
Ted does not close doors.
Normally,
the
our
man
advice...
walks into place, the door's open. He is not going to close. If it closes by itself, that's between the door and its maker. But Ted does not close doors. It is against everything he stands for as a human being. Does not close doors.
On principle.
On principle. He stands for his principle. All doors should be allowed to be opened and stay that way.
My normal advice for most people who are wondering whether they should get an isolation platform is fold up a couple blankets, put it under your sub. In the case of a down-firing sub, turn your sub on its side, because that's fine, not going to affect how it works. And try it first, because a damping platform isn't always going to solve. If your problem is structural vibration, it'll help with that. It's not going to eliminate it, but it'll help a great deal with that if that's your problem. But you need to figure out whether that's your problem first, usually. Now, I mean, if he bought these from Amazon, he can return them, so he's not completely out money or whatever. But yeah, if you put your subwoofers on top of these isolation platforms and it didn't cut the sound downstairs, that is a clear indication that the problem is actually a flanking path and not structural vibration. Right. You've done the experiment now, unfortunately spent money to do it, but you've done the experiment now, and now you know that's the culprit.
Right. Yeah.
Soundproofing is hard, man.
Close the door. I'm sorry. Close the door. I yell at my children to close doors all the time. Ted does not close door. He comes to my house and be like, Ted, dude, seriously, close the door. I'm sorry, dude. I can't do it. Can't do it. Nick, on a recent episode of Home Theater Geeks, they talked about Sony Cletus and Samsung's micro LED cinema displays and the possibility that they might be installed in homes as well. What do we think about these self-admissive modular displays replacing projection setups? So what these are if you've ever been to like a stadium and they have like a big display up there, it's a bunch of little lights, right? These are like that, except everything's extremely small.
That's right.
So I think that with Sony Cletus, they're like the pixels are like 3 microns apart or whatever,
something like that, and 90-something% of each pixel is actually just black nothingness because the crystal LEDs are so small that they take up it's like 8% or something of the pixel.
Right.
And there's 3 of them because there's red, green, and blue.
Right.
That's how small they are. So the teeny tiny little LED points of light, but they can hit like 500 nits.
Nice.
It's pretty cool.
So what do we think about these things?
I'm for it.
I mean, if they can make it work. I mean,
and affordable.
They're not going to call them. They're going to be the new flat panel. I mean, they're not going to call them projection screens. They're going to call them, flat panel, the new, whatever. I mean, if they can make it cheap and make it big and make it so that people can do it. I mean, honestly, they should make it so that all walls are covered in these things. And then, and then we don't have to worry about displays. People are like, oh, but what about where you put your speakers? The whole wall. I could put the speakers anywhere and make the screen as big, just fit between the speakers.
Yep.
Right? I mean, you program the thing. Alexa, make me a TV screen between the speakers.
Evolve Sony's whole actuators on the surface of the screen thing itself. You turn this into the speakers.
It's the speakers. Yeah, I love it.
There's plenty. I'm totally, if I can have a 150-inch 500 nit display. Yeah, I'm for it. And one that I can use with the lights on because it's not a projector.
Yeah.
Totally for it.
Yeah. Hit me.
Just, I don't have $3.8 million for one. That's all.
So he says naturally one of the drawbacks of these screens is that the center speaker cannot be placed behind them. For homes, it's the same as a flat panel, but for full-size cinema, it was suggested that 2 center speakers might be used, one above and the screen and one below. Would that work for creating a phantom center in the middle, and could the same setup be effective at home? Dude, we did a review. We didn't. Ray.
Axiom centers, remember?
Yes. Ray did a review of the Axiom Epic 800 thing, right? And he was trying to make those center channels. They're the ones with that tweeters on the outside. He's like, they're not working. So he had them send 2, and he put one above and one below.
Yep.
And it still didn't sound that great, but it sounded a little bit better. Will it work? Yeah, I mean, it's not a good idea. But
we don't stereo image from top to bottom unless we turn our head 90 degrees.
Like this. So it's not going to give you your phantom center. But my idea here is that you could theoretically do something like this. The idea being that the screen is so huge that you're just looking for like this wall of sound. In actuality, I don't think it would ever be necessary. You only really need the one, and your brain will relocate the sound to the center of the screen. If it's
Quite well, yeah.
if it's above or below, doesn't matter. It will do it quite well because our brains are capable of doing this, and they'll do it whether we want it to or not. So I don't think it would ever be necessary. And like what Rob just said, if we could just make it so the wall vibrates a little bit, the screen vibrates a little bit, then you don't have to do it at all.
Because that's a big surface area. It doesn't need to move very much.
No, it doesn't.
It's a huge surface area. The way Samsung had this set up in there, actually, because they actually have one of these in Korea now.
Sure.
The way they did it is they put speakers all around the perimeter of the screen, but all of those were the center channel. So it was like
just silly.
The whole perimeter of the screen, top, left, right, bottom, that is all the center channel.
Yeah.
So that's one way to do it. I mean, the whole darn screen is.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary. I think one would be just fine for most.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're talking about a really but really, we're talking about people having 150-inch screens, and when they have a single center channel, none of them say, "Well, it sounds like it's coming from one part of the screen and not the whole screen." No one's ever said that. No one who knew what they were talking about, anyways. So Nick uses Ascend Sierra 2 speakers. I'm gonna cough. Hold on.
All right.
Excuse me.
There it went.
Ugh. I just drank this water and it completely scratched my throat. Hold on.
How long has that water been sitting out there?
I just got it. I mean, I got it right before the podcast, but I really thought this was going to be the Tom spilt water and started cursing on the podcast, because it was so full it was wobbly. But now it's much more manageable. Nick uses Ascend Sierra 2 speakers and was playing on an acoustically transparent screen with a 4K HDR projector. But the acoustically transparent screens all tend to have a lower gain than the non-acoustically transparent ones, and with HDR being such a challenge for projectors, could he get a second Sierra 2 center and get a good effect with one above the screen and one below, even with the Sierra 2's narrow vertical dispersion? I don't think you need to do that. And
I wouldn't recommend it.
Not only that, I really don't think that the extra, I think you can still go with the acoustically transparent screen with HDR. I mean, I really don't see a problem with that. So you could do it either way. You could take one speaker and put it below. You could take an acoustically transparent screen or above. You could get an acoustically transparent screen and put it behind. I think either way, it'll all be fine. They'll all end up working out fine. I think you're worrying about things that are really in the end not going to be that much of a problem.
I wouldn't recommend doing the one above, one below.
No.
But, yeah, unless you're going to be lying on your side all the time, and then you would give up your stereo imaging from left to right. So that's still not a good idea.
Yeah. So either way. So then are there any special considerations or specific brands models we recommend when it comes to drop ceiling tiles? So the goal is good acoustics inside the theater and soundproofing outside the theater. Aside from putting insulation above the drop ceiling tiles, is there any particular kind of ceiling tile that ought to be used? Well, there are ceiling tiles that are acoustically, they're supposed to be absorptive and all that.
Acoustic ceiling tiles.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are specific brands that are better than others. I mean, you can literally just not, just put fabric up there. You know what I mean? You could build your own, put fabric up there that just lets it all through, and then you've got the ceiling all stuffed with the stuff, the insulation, and Bob's your uncle. So I don't know. I mean, there's all sorts of ones out there. Aren't there ones that like Gick uses or whatever that have
like diffusion panels?
Diffusion panels too. You could kind of mix it up there.
There are those, yeah. Oralex sells those too.
Yeah. So
just straight replacements for your typical grid ceiling tile, but it acts as a diffuser up there if you wanted to do that. Yeah, I mean, there are 4 things that help you with soundproofing, right? So one is just sheer mass.
Right.
Second one is decoupling, so having 2 surfaces separated. The third one is damping, and the fourth one is just insulation inside the cavity of whatever it is. So insulation inside, that's really easy, right? You're going to put pink stuff above the drop ceiling tile. That's number 1. The drop ceiling is already decoupled from the surface above. It's not attached to the same joists that are holding the floor above. You have this layer of the grid in between, so it's decoupled. The ceiling tiles themselves, if you go with acoustic ceiling tiles, if you want to, you could go commercial grade, right? That's about I don't have a particular brand or a particular model of ceiling tile to point you toward, but if you really wanted to, you could go commercial grade acoustic ceiling tile. But acoustic ceiling tiles are essentially a little bit squishy. which means they damp the sound.
Right.
So that's number 3. So the only last one is sheer mass. And what some people will do is they'll put in the ceiling tile, and directly above the ceiling tile, they'll put in some mass-loaded vinyl to just increase the mass in that ceiling. And then they'll put insulation above that. That's all 4 things you can do to soundproof the room. And that'll be very effective. But by and large,
Right.
the reason drop ceilings work so well is because of the decoupling that's automatic, and then the damping of the ceiling tiles themselves. And if you get those super thin plastic ceiling tiles...
Oh, right. You don't want those.
Right?
They'll
You don't
rattle.
want those. Those have no mass. They don't really damp, and they're just going to rattle. You don't want that. You want the foamy type ones.
Right.
As soon as you do that, you have damping and you have decoupling, which is very effective because most waves are going to hit any surface that's a different medium than the air and reflect back. That's what most of the sound wave is going to do. You're only worried about the part that would penetrate. You damp it, decouple it, and have insulation in there. That's 3 out of the 4. That's already very effective. You add something a little bit heavy above there, and now you've got all 4. You got mass as well. So that's about it. Just get the foamy type ceiling tiles.
There you go. Tony's room is 20 feet by 12 feet by 8 feet. He has it set up wider than long. So it's 20 feet. That's where the screen is. Because one of the 12-foot walls has a fireplace and the other 12-foot wall has a door and a closet. So Tony's screen will go on one of the 20-foot walls, and he'll be sitting 9 feet from eyes to screen. He's legally blind, but he can still see well enough to appreciate good black levels and colors and a general good-looking image. I don't know what the definition of legal blindness is, apparently, because it seems like quite a lot of seeing.
Well, it means you're not allowed to drive.
I guess, right? Yeah, I suppose. And I have known quite a few people that are legally blind that totally aren't what you would consider to be somebody who was blind. So, yeah.
Right.
Larger is better for him, though, and resolution doesn't really matter too much. So he started thinking about short throw or ultra short throw 1080p projectors. I don't know how those two things line up.
Because 9-foot viewing distance and big image, right? So like we were
yeah,
saying...
but the room is 12 feet long. I mean, that 12-foot room is plenty big enough for a regular projector.
But you remember we've been talking about the fellow who has a 12-foot room, and the biggest screen that he can create with a 12-foot room is a 100-inch image.
Yeah, but that was with his projector, though, right?
That was with that projector, but this is why he's thinking shorter throw, because he wants to go larger than 100 inches.
All right, so he cares more about the audio, so he'd like the projector to be quiet, and while his total budget is $8,500, he'd like to put as much of that towards audio as possible, skimping on the projector. Well, as soon as you start skimping, you usually start skimping on it being quiet as well. So 9-foot viewing distance, he was thinking he'd go with a 120-inch diagonal screen, giving him roughly a 51-degree field of view. Does this seem reasonable? 51. Yeah, I mean, it's 20 inches.
Yeah.
And 120 inches, honestly, for most projectors from 10 to 12 feet, which is where your projector will end up if it's at the back of your room.
Well, not 12 feet, because the lens...
the lens, so
there's no way.
Say 9 to 11 feet.
Yeah.
They can normally do 120 inches. Many of them can.
Many can, but not... I mean, most of the like Epsons can't. They have to be farther away from the screen in order to create 120. So,
my problem is, okay, I don't know how long my room is anymore. I think it's like I don't know how far my screen is from my projector. My problem is I have a 92 inches. Is that what I have? 92
I believe
inches?
that's what you got.
And my problem is getting the image small enough. Like everything wants to project bigger than that. So,
but you have your projector all the way at the back of the room on a shelf, right?
But it's not, though, because there's a soffit that holds the AC duct, and it's in front of that by like 2 feet. So it's probably, I don't know how long my room is. I think it's probably 15 feet from the screen. Maybe 14 feet from the screen.
Now, I mean, essentially a 50-degree field of view, right? Now, for me, I would consider that a little bit larger than I would personally like. I like maybe a 45-degree field of view max, but he wants bigger because he's visually impaired to some degree. So bigger looks better to him, which is totally understandable. I don't know if that's big enough for you.
Right.
Just as an example, if you were to go to the next sort of standard size in screens, which is 135-inch diagonal, if you'd review that from 9 feet away, that would give you like a 57-degree field of view. Now, I would sort of explain that as go to your normal commercial movie theater and sit at about the halfway point, right?
Yeah.
the halfway point of the theater is going to be a little under a 50-degree field of view in most theaters.
Right.
If that's where you like to sit, is right about the middle of a commercial movie theater, you're like, that is where I like to sit, I would say the 120-inch screen from 9 feet makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, if you like to sit in like the front third of the theater, you know, like a lot of theaters sort of have the first rows of seats
aisle.
and they have an aisle. And yeah, if you like to sit in front of the aisle, and maybe you do, right? I don't know. If that's where you like to sit, then I would go bigger than 120, even from 9 feet away, because, you know, that's closer to what you would like in a commercial movie theater. So I don't know what's your preference, but hopefully that gives you some idea. If you like to sit behind the aisle in one of the big theaters, then 120 is probably fine. If you'd like to sit in front of the aisle, then 135 is probably the way to go.
All right, there you go. He found the InFocus IN3916 short throw projector being offered for $350. Holy crap, dude, that's cheap. Oops, I just clicked on something. Would that be a good choice, or should you be looking for a different projector? I'm going to look at it right now. I'm going to guess
it's not what I would recommend, unfortunately. I know the price is attractive.
Interactive projector. Ooh, that sounds like a business class.
Yeah, it's 1280 by 800 resolution.
Oh, wow, that's not going to be great.
It's that 16 by 10
WXGA resolution. So there's that display.
It's kind of loud, like 35 decibels.
That's pretty loud.
It's got pretty crappy black levels by all accounts.
Yeah, one would think. This sounds like something. This is a business class projector. So basically,
yeah, this is meant to be, and it is definitely ultra. Well, it's hard to say. It throws a 120-inch image from 4.5 feet away, and there is no lens adjustment of any kind. There's no zoom. There's no focus. There's no lens shift. And you plop the projector down, and whatever you get is what you get. So installation would be a headache.
Right.
It doesn't have several of the things that you requested. I know the price is attractive, but I can't in good conscience say that this is the good choice.
All right, so we need something that he can set up from no further back. Let's be conservative here than 9 feet.
Right? Well, I would say 10.
10, okay.
You could definitely do 10 feet in this room.
Yeah, so let's say 10 feet. The lens to screen 10 feet.
Yeah.
He needs to have the ability to do 120 to 135 at a reasonable brightness and not too loud. And not too loud. And not too loud and low price. That's right.
Yeah.
What you got for him, Rob? What you got?
Well, the easy go-to is BenQ's HT2050, which we recommend frequently. Now, it's $750, right? So it's $400 more than the one he was looking at.
That's so cheap, though, seriously, for a projector.
But so much. 1080p resolution.
Right.
Good black levels. Not the best black levels ever, but hey, $750, okay? Better than the InFocuses. Better color. Lens, it's got some zoom. It's got some focus. It's got some lens shift even, right? So easier to set up. And 8 decibels quieter. 27 dB. That's significant, right? That's over twice as loud the InFocus is versus the BenQ. So it checks all the boxes basically, right? Now it can do the 120-inch for sure.
Okay.
But it'll create the 120-inch image. The closest it can be to the screen is 10 feet. So that'll work.
Right.
You can do the 120. But if you tried to go for the 135, it probably wouldn't work because for 135. The closest it can be is with its lens, 11 feet 4 inches, which would mean the whole projector and a little space at the back so you can plug things in would have to squeeze into 8 inches, and that isn't going to quite work. It's close.
Right. How big? The projector's probably bigger than that, right?
Yeah.
8 inches
So
is pretty big.
I worked it out basically in order to have at least 3 inches of space behind the projector so that you can plug things in. The largest screen you could go with this is 128 inches. Now, I don't think that's a standard size from anybody. So that means custom screen size, which means increasing the price.
But he can get his 120. He can get his 120.
He can get his 120 for sure. Now, BenQ makes an HT2150.
Okay.
Right, so there was the 2050 that I just mentioned. The 2150 is the short throw version of the 2050. All the specs are the same, except it has a short throw lens. So now that will create a 120-inch image from as close as 6 feet, lens to screen, or the 135-inch image from as close as 6'9" or as far as 8 feet.
That means that no matter which screen he goes with, it's going to be in front of his seating.
It's in
Okay.
front of his seating. But if it's ceiling mounted I mean, if the lens is 8 feet and he's sitting 9 feet, it's essentially directly overhead,
Right.
right? Or it could be a little ways in front of you and create a 135. So the 2150 is more expensive. It's $1,000.
Right.
So if you want to do the 120-inch screen, get the 2050 because it's less expensive and it'll work with the lens 10 feet from the screen, which should be easy to do in your 12-foot room.
Yeah, it's gonna be behind you and a little less noticeable. If there's any light leakage.
But if I mean, and it could vary. I mean, size does matter here, right?
Yeah.
So if you're like, yep, for sure, I always sit in front of the aisle when I go to the movie theater. I'm like, get the 135, spend the extra money, get the 2150, because it everything will work and you'll be happier. And ultimately, that's worth the $250.
Yeah.
If you're like, I'm super happy with this, versus I wish I could have gone a little bit larger.
But we've gone from a $350 projector that he was looking at to
but
$1,000 projector.
the 350 was a little bit of a
Hail
little bit
Mary.
of a pipe dream.
Yeah, everybody knew
You
that.
know? Yeah.
He must
So-
have known that when he said it to us too.
if you're like, I just can't fathom $750, that is just too much. BenQ does have a model called the HT1070. It's $600. The lens is the same as the 2050s, so 120 inches from 10 feet away would work. You couldn't do 135 with the HT1070, but you're giving up several things. Doesn't have any lens shift anymore. So, but that's probably okay. That's just the up and down. It's dimmer, it's lower in contrast, it's louder, its black levels aren't as deep. So you're giving up a bunch of stuff to save $150. So I can't super get enthusiastic about that. But it's there. If you're just like, it has to be under this price, then that exists and it could work. And it's still better than the InFocus. That's everything I got.
All right. That sounds good, I suppose. I mean, unfortunately, dude, and I hate to say this happens all the time. We find these deals and we are very excited that, there's this price out there for this thing. And then we look at it and we're like, this is really not what I'm going to be happy with.
Right.
So if you spent the $350 and you got this projector, I think chances are you're going to end up feeling like you threw that $350 away. And even if you can find a $500 projector somewhere down the road, you're ending up with spending $850 that you would have spent anyways, but now you're only getting a $500 projector out of it.
Right. Yeah.
So it might be better just to go ahead and do that. So that gives you somewhere around $775 or so to spend on the speakers and everything else. Let's say all in, you're going to be in for $1,000. If you get
projector and screen.
Projector and screen. You're going to be in for $1,000, maybe $1,100. So he said it was $8,500 was his
$8,500 total. Yeah.
So that puts us in at 74, and you get a lot of speakers for 74.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a lot.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you got about the model
No, I mean,
too.
if you already worked it out and you know that 120 is the size that you want to go for, I'm like, just get the HT 2050. It's really nice. It checks all the boxes that you wanted, and it'll work with the lens 10 feet away. So if that was already figured out, then that's an easy one for me.
That's the answer. All right. Let's thank our listeners of the week. We got Mark and Anand for their donations. They went to www.avrant.com and clicked on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and left us a PayPal donation. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Anand.
Yeah, Mark, Andy, thank you both so much for those donations. We appreciate it.
If you want to get your question answered on this podcast, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. All the rest of the contact information at the beginning of the podcast. Go check it out there. Anything else, Rob? Anything else you want to reveal about movies you've seen lately or anything like that?
No, that's it. I'm going to go see Valerian tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes.
What is that one about?
That's I don't really know. I mean, it's Luc Besson, so doing the space thing.
I do like him.
Dane DeHaan and Cara Delevingne.
I do. Oh, that's the one where they're like, yeah, that looks awesome.
Where they super duper look like their brother and sister, but I think they're supposed to be lovers, and that's kind of weird.
It's going to be creepy. I do. Fifth Element's one of my all-time favorite movies, so I give that guy all sorts of, even though he's put out some just garbage, but there are some movies that movie right there, I will forever think of him as a great director because of that movie. Yeah. Oh, Alpha. Have you seen the previews for Alpha?
No.
Alpha is like how humans and dogs became like 20,000 years ago.
Okay.
It looks. like, again, we're talking about emotional connection. The part with a dog and stuff, and I'm like a dog person. I'm like, the music was very nice at this part. I got something in my eye. Right? I'm very interested in seeing that. All right. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Go out and listen to